Chapter 1479. To chase or not to chase. Even the true spirit Laozu was an existence that this world was jealous of. At this moment, Yuan Laozu was very afraid of this taboo that originated from the Crystal Palace. With this hesitation, Lu Ping had gone further into the sky of Poison Wall. Yuan Laozu suddenly felt a sense of pride. This momentum even made Yuan Laozu's face turn red, as if he had drunk too much wine. His red nose turned red in an instant. The old man wanted to chase. If he couldn't even deal with such a junior, how could the old man have the face to be the master of the Crystal Palace in the future? Although the sky of Poison Wall was extremely dangerous, the old man only needed to kill him before he alerted the mysterious existence. Many cultivators of the Crystal Palace had entered and exited the sky of Poison Wall. As long as the old man didn't deliberately target the mysterious existence, he might not be targeted. Yuan Laozu suspended the crystal tower that was temporarily trapped by Lu Ping above his head again. The crystal light curtain hung down and covered him. Yuan Laozu resolutely stepped into the sky of Poison Wall that was closing after Lu Ping opened it. It wasn't the time for the poisonous mist to weaken. In fact, Lu Ping could feel that the poisonous mist in the Fallen Mountain's secret ground was as strong as the poisonous mist in the Seven Stars Grotto Heaven's Golden Fallen Canyon. However, the poisonous mist still couldn't cause any harm to the two great presences. Lu Ping had the 10,000 poison source liquid, the 10,000 poison meteorite wind gang, the black prison poisonous fire, and a lot of 10,000 wonder dew. Usually, only one of these treasures could make a person immune to all poisons, let alone Lu Ping. Although the corrosive effect of the poisonous fog could still affect the light curtain hanging down by Yuan Laozu, with the toughness of the light curtain and the cultivation of Yuan Laozu, the poisonous fog's damage to the crystal light curtain was like scratching an itch. Lu Ping naturally knew that Yuan Laozu had caught up with him. In fact, the moment he entered the sky of Poison Wall, he had scanned the fallen secret land with his divine thought. There was only one message hidden in it. I'm coming. Although Lu Ping was eager to fight with the true spirit and did not lack the courage to fight with it, this did not mean that Lu Ping ignored the strength gap between them. Since Lu Ping rushed to the fallen secret land to keep the appointment, he naturally wanted to use the power of Longhuai Ancestor to fight against Yuan Laozu behind him. Although Lu Ping did not know what level of strength Longhuai Ancestor had reached, the fact that Lu Ping still could not detect its depth showed that Longhuai Ancestor's strength was unfathomable. According to the conversation between Longhuai Ancestor and Lu Ping, Longhuai Ancestor's roots covered the entire fallen secret land. The moment Lu Ping entered the sky of Poison Wall, Longhuai Ancestor should have known. However, until now, when Lu Ping tried to send a message with his divine thought, he did not get a response from Longhuai Ancestor. Since there was no response, it should be that Longhuai Ancestor did not want to respond. Could it be because of Yuan Laozu behind him? A true spirit cultivator might really be able to make Longhuai Ancestor afraid, so it was normal for Longhuai Ancestor to not respond because he was afraid of getting into trouble. Lu Ping naturally did not know what happened to the Crystal Palace in the fallen secret land 8,000 years ago. Since he could not borrow the power of Longhuai Ancestor, Lu Ping could only rely on his own strength to fight against the true spirit cultivator behind him. However, just as Lu Ping turned around, just as Yuan Ancestor was about to enter the heavenly poison wall, a loud bang and a roar came from the void outside the heavenly poison wall almost at the same time. Lu Ping's heavenly poison wall was about to close up. Suddenly, a loud bang and a roar came from outside the heavenly poison wall. The surging spiritual chi was like a violent storm, and the fallen secret land was suddenly stirred up. The huge change in the weather almost affected the entire fallen secret land when the loud sound was heard. At this time, the great adepts of the various sects who were chatting happily in the Phantom Palace were suddenly shocked by the strong spiritual chi storm. All the Dharma adepts in the entire Phantom Palace fell silent for a moment. Among the Dharma adepts of the various sects in the Phantom Palace, there were many who had seen battles between pure young adepts. However, to be able to cause such a huge change in the weather and stir up the entire fallen secret land, the scale of this battle seemed to have far exceeded their impression of the power of pure young adepts. Zhang Tianlin and the great adepts of Skyrend, Song Yu Laozu, and Gu Zhunfei, looked at each other discreetly. They could see the deep worry in each other's eyes. Everyone knew that this time, the focus of the various sects was on the three sects, the Crystal Palace, Skyrind, and the Jinling. Everyone also knew that Xiao Baiyu and Lu Tianping were rare geniuses in this world. Even so, it was unlikely that the two of them would cause such a huge commotion, right? For a moment, the astute adepts in the Phantom Palace all looked in shock at the great adept of the Crystal Palace, Yuanfeng Laozu, who was sitting at the head of the Phantom Palace with a smile on his face. Seeing that everyone was looking at him, Yuanfeng Laozu smiled reservedly. A piece of news that shocked the entire East Sea came out of his mouth. Haha, our sect has specially sent Old Man here to invite our friends from all sections. Our sect's brother Yuan Jiu has successfully become a true soul cultivator a few days ago and will soon take over the position of our sect's previous guardian, Uncle Laozu Danju, to guard the Crystal Palace. After this Phantom Island conference, our sect will hold a grand inheritance ceremony. We would like to invite all friends to attend the ceremony. Boom. This piece of news instantly swept through the major and minor repairs masters of the Phantom Palace. True Soul Laozu, Danju Laozu, and Brother Yuanji Laozu. Each of them was a figure who could shake the entire cultivation world with a stomp of their feet in East Sea or even the entire cultivation world, dazzling all the cultivators in the Phantom Palace. Many cultivators cast looks of pity, schadenfreude, worry, joy, and so on at the other two great cultivators of the illusionary spirit palace, but most of them looked at Jiang Tianlin. Yuanfeng Laozu released the news that Yuanji Laozu had become a true soul cultivator, and that Danju Laozu was about to leave this world. There was no doubt that the trump card that the Crystal Palace had sent to deal with Xiao Baiyu and Lu Tianping was the supreme powerhouse of the Crystal Palace, the genuine True Soul Laozu. In front of the legendary True Soul Laozu, the sky-splitting Sword Sage and the North Sea Water Sword Immortal were nothing in front of the True Soul Cultivator. The reason why the people of the Phantom Palace looked at Jiang Tianlin was obvious. Compared to Xiao Baiyu, Lu Tianping's death seemed to be more certain. If Xiao Baiyu, who had accumulated a lot of power in the cultivation world, still had a chance to escape, then Jinling's Lu Tianping seemed to have no hope at all. Taking a step back, even if Skyrind lost Xiao Baiyu, there was still a pure young cultivator, 8th Sister Zhu, and Skyrind's tens of thousands of years of accumulation. Skyrind was still an old large sect. But if Jinling lost Lu Tianping, there were countless questions in people's hearts as to whether it could maintain its status as a large sect. Worry flashed across Jiang Tianlin's face, but it could not be hidden from Yuanfeng Laozu, who had been looking at them proudly. However, when Yuanfeng Laozu was about to say something, there was another loud bang that shook the entire Phantom Palace. There was even a faint sword hum in this loud bang. However, when this sword hum sounded out, it instead caused the worry on the face of the sky-split sword sect's ancestor Bluefeather, Gu Zhanfei, to become even heavier. As a sword cultivator as well, Ancestor Bluefeather was able to tell that the sword hum wasn't the sound of battle, but the wail of a sword. Sure enough, after the loud bang, an old voice suddenly resounded throughout the world. What a great sky-splitting sword sage. You can actually withstand the old man's full attack. You really live up to your reputation. However, after the old man broke your natal flying sword, how much strength do you, Xiao Baiyu, have left? The destruction of Xiao Baiyu's natal flying sword made Songyu Laozu angry. He suddenly stood up and was about to walk out of the Phantom Palace. Yuanfeng Laozu suddenly stood up and blocked his way. He said with a fake smile, "Fellow Songyu, where are you going?" Songyu Laozu was instantly furious. Just as he was about to explode, he suddenly heard Xiao Baiyu's weak but clear laughter. "Although I am not Senior's opponent, I have forced Senior to use his full strength as a true spirit cultivator. Hee, Tian Fa is coming. Does Senior have the confidence to enter the North Ice Field before Tian Fa? If you don't have the confidence, you should leave quickly. There's no rush. Old man, I'll kill you first. It won't take long anyway." Hee, it's too late. What? A cry of surprise rang out, causing the situation in the Phantom Palace to rapidly change. Everyone could tell that the "it's too late" was Xiao Baiyu's voice. Danju Laozu, who was behind him, let out a cry of surprise. This cry of surprise was filled with fear and disbelief. Everyone could tell that the one who was pleased with himself was Xiao Baiyu. But what did Xiao Baiyu do to make a dignified true spirit cultivator lose his composure like this? Could it be that he, who had his natal flying sword broken, still have a way to turn defeat into victory? It had to be known that this was Laozu, who had become a true spirit cultivator several hundred years ago. Everyone looked at Songyu Laozu once again. They saw Songyu Laozu looking confused at first, then his eyes lit up as if he had thought of something. He looked at Yuanfeng Laozu, who was blocking in front of him, and gave a strange laugh. Then he turned around and sat down on the seat of honor in the Phantom Palace. If it wasn't for Senior's help, this Xiao would need at least 50 years to reach the true spirit realm. Moreover, I don't know how long it would take for me to break through the bottleneck. But now, this is all thanks to Senior's help. Although this Xiao has broken the heaven-splitting sword, I have stepped into the true spirit realm. So this is the feeling of becoming a true spirit cultivator. Even if Senior has the Overlord Hammer, what can you do to this Xiao? Chapter 1480. However, after your origin flying sword was broken by the old man, how much of your strength do you, Xiao Baiyu, have left? Before the myriad poison sky wall closed, Danju Laozu's aged roar just happened to reach the ears of Lu Ping and Yuanju Laozu. Following the closing of the protective wall, Lu Ping and Yuanju Laozu were separated from the outside world at the same time. Lu Ping's expression was very ugly. Xiao Baiyu's origin flying sword had already been broken by the true spirit cultivator, and without the origin flying sword that was refined from the broken sword Jiao Daoren used to split the sky, how much strength could Xiao Baiyu have left? How could he be a match for Danju Laozu? Even though he had accepted the 9 profound towers' true spirit inheritance, Lu Ping knew that Danju Laozu, as a true spirit Laozu, would only be able to use his full strength once in this world. If he used any more, he might immediately attract the heavenly punishment. However, Lu Ping had no way of determining whether Danju Laozu had used his full strength or not. Furthermore, even if he had used his full strength, the current Xiao Baiyu only had a few levels of strength left. Under a casual attack from Danju Laozu, he would probably be in danger. Xiao Baiyu was in danger. The Longhuai ancestor had not appeared at all, and Yuanju Laozu was closing in step by step. Although Lu Ping had never lacked fighting spirit, at this moment, his heart could not help but sink. Yuanju Laozu laughed and said, "It's your turn this time." In the illusionary spirit palace, Songyu Laozu laughed and said to Yuanfeng Laozu, "Fellow Yuanfeng, shouldn't we discuss the distribution of spirit stones for this conference?" Yuanfeng Laozu's expression was very ugly. Xiao Baiyu had suddenly become a true spirit at the last moment, and even if Danju Laozu had the Overlord Hammer, he would not be able to kill Xiao Baiyu in a short period of time. Furthermore, Danju Laozu had probably already fled to the northern ice plains to avoid the heavenly punishment. Without Danju Laozu to suppress him, Senior Yuanjiu might not be able to suppress Xiao Baiyu, who had also just become a true spirit. Furthermore, there was the 9 profound towers' small thousand world. Damn it! Was there really going to be a second sacred land in the East Sea? Thinking of Yuanju Laozu, Yuanfeng Laozu seemed to have thought of something. He glanced at Zhang Tianlin and sneered, "Fellow Songyu, don't be so anxious. From the old man's point of view, we should wait for news from Zhenling's side." Songyu Laozu looked at Zhang Tianlin thoughtfully. The two sects were originally united against a common enemy, but this time, Songyu Laozu unexpectedly did not speak up for Zhang Tianlin. Yuanfeng Laozu's lips slightly curled up as he thought to himself, as expected. In the North Sea, Yuan Feifei looked at the slightly dejected old man in front of her and sneered inside. However, she maintained a respectful tone and said, "Junior will remember Senior's words. Junior will report back to the 2 great uncles. I'll have to trouble Senior to take care of them." A sliver of guilt flashed in the old man's eyes. His old voice contained a sliver of exhaustion as he said, "Don't worry. Since the old man has already promised you, he will definitely do it." Yuan Feifei nodded, then suddenly said, "But when the time comes, I'll have to ask Senior to destroy the formation on the island." What? The old man was shocked. he said. Are you trying to force the old man to fall out with Xinling? The old man was slightly agitated. His presence surged as he charged towards Yuan Feifei like a tidal wave. He said, the old man has already agreed to investigate the progress of Xinling's plan for the 7-star grotto heaven. Now that you're clearly confident that you can find the 7-star grotto heaven before Xinling, why do you have to get the old man to destroy the formation on the island? Yuan Feifei was like a rock on the shore. She allowed the waves to batter her as she looked at the old man indifferently. A while later, the old man's presence suddenly weakened, but there was still a sliver of anger on his face. He said, did fellow Tongtian want the old man to do this? The old man wants to see fellow Tongtian. Yuan Feifei smiled reservedly. Third great-uncle is currently working with 7th great-uncle to search for the spatial crack to the 7-star grotto heaven. He has no time to attend to other matters. Anger finally appeared on the old man's face. He said, Xinling Lu Tianping has saved my life. The old man's actions today have already brought shame to Lu Xiaoyu. The old man cannot comply with this. Yuan Feifei's expression immediately changed. She sneered, Senior, you should think this through. Since you've chosen this path, how can it be so easy for you to go back on your word? The old man said coldly, aren't you afraid that the North Sea Water Sword Immortal will take revenge once he finds out what your Yuan clan has done? Revenge? Why would my Yuan clan be afraid of his revenge? Yuan Feifei seemed to have heard the greatest joke. Even if Lu Tianping wants to take revenge, he'll have to be able to escape from the East Sea alive first. Moreover, even if he's lucky enough to escape, whether Xinling still exists in this world is another matter. What awaits Lu Tianping will be an inescapable net set up in the North Sea. The old man said in shock, what exactly do you want to do? Are you going to wage a sect annihilation war against Xinling just for the 7-star grotto heaven? Yuan Feifei said coldly, Senior, don't you think that after the destruction of the 9 mystical tower, there are too many sects in the cultivation world that want to become sacred grounds? Speaking up to this point, Yuan Feifei's expression more or less carried a hint of inexplicable fanaticism. In the current cultivation world, only my Yuan clan can be mentioned in the same breath as the 6 sacred grounds. However, my Yuan clan has never had an unbroken true spirit inheritance since the beginning of the world. Even as the number 1 clan, the Yuan clan has never had a true spirit disciple. This is not fair. Yuan Feifei turned and left after saying this, leaving the old man hovering in midair. No one knew what he was thinking. After a while, the old man let out a long sigh. Then, he turned into a stream of light and disappeared above the sea, leaving behind only the waves and the rustling sea breeze. Just after the two of them left one after another, a gust of sea breeze pushed a wave on the surface of the sea. A spray suddenly escaped from the wave, and then it turned into a human figure in the sea breeze. In the darkness of the night, the face could not be seen clearly. The person stood on the surface of the sea for a while. Under the dim, starry sky, it was impossible to see what he was doing. Only a pair of piercingly cold eyes could be seen in the night. After a while, the figure was once again swallowed up by the surging wave. It was as if nothing had happened on the surface of the sea. In the firmament poison wall, Lu Ping held the spiritual treasure in his hands. Although he was cutting it in two, he could not hide the trace of shock on his face. The pure yang scissors, which had always been invincible in Lu Ping's hands, were being held by the Yuan Jilaozu dozens of feet away. Although Lu Ping's real essence was continuously injected into the pure yang spiritual treasure, he could not cut the scissors in his hands. The mantis, which had always been extremely arrogant when Lu Ping controlled the spiritual treasure to cut it in two, was lying on Lu Ping's shoulder and slowly hiding behind Lu Ping's neck in the face of the Yuan Jilaozu's strength. Yuan Jilaozu's face was full of admiration as he said, I have to say, as a pure yang cultivator, your strength is extremely outstanding. However, the more the old man cannot tolerate you today. I will let you experience the true difference between a pure yang cultivator and a true spirit Laozu before you die. Yuan Jilaozu spoke casually of victory, but Lu Ping was sufficiently valiant at the moment of life and death. Even before Yuan Jilaozu, the true spirit sword whistled out and slashed down on Yuan Jilaozu in the blink of an eye. Yuan Jilaozu did not care at first, but the moment Lu Ping took out the flying sword, the true spirit sword did not show off its previous sharpness. The dim light even caused Yuan Jilaozu to lose his vigilance. However, when the true spirit sword suddenly appeared above Yuan Jilaozu's head, the powerful power that was released in that instant shocked Yuan Jilaozu. Pure Yang spiritual treasure, heaven-splitting artifact. Yuan Jilaozu cried out involuntarily. He suddenly pushed his hands outwards, and Lu Ping felt a powerful force suddenly surge out from the spiritual treasure. Even with Lu Ping's current physical strength, he could not control his hands in an instant. The spiritual treasure fell from his hands, and the two indestructible blade lights were immediately annihilated in midair. Yuan Jilaozu was shocked by the powerful sword energy that the true spirit sword had instantly erupted with. After freeing his hands, he slapped his chest with his left hand. A fiery red gourd rose from the top of Yuan Jilaozu's head and instantly fell into the 9th floor of the crystal pagoda. A fiery red mist spread out from the crystal pagoda, drowning the powerful sword energy that was descending from the sky. In an instant, Lu Ping felt that the connection between his divine sense and the true spirit sword had suddenly weakened. It was not because there was an obstruction between the two, but because the fiery red mist had weakened the connection between the divine sense and the spiritual treasure. In Lu Ping's divine sense, the fiery red mist was like strong alcohol. When a cultivator's divine sense came into contact with it, it would cause Lu Ping to feel as though his divine sense was drunk. For a moment, Lu Ping felt that his divine sense was out of control. However, his heart was extremely clear. The moment he felt this, the jade green soul fire continued to burn in his divine sense. The invisible red mist that had fused with his divine sense had no choice but to be forced out by the jade green soul fire and condense into a ball again. However, in this short period of time, the power of the true spirit sword had instantly weakened. Yuan Jilaozu seized this opportunity and used the crystal pagoda to collide with the true spirit sword. A series of trembling sounds could be heard, and the true spirit sword had been sent flying dozens of feet away. On the light curtain hanging down from the crystal pagoda, a crack appeared from the top of the pagoda. It could not be mended for a moment. Yuan Jilaozu's expression changed when he saw the unmended crack on the light curtain of the crystal pagoda. However, he immediately calmed down and said, No, this is not a heaven-splitting artifact. Its power is far from that. However, it is closely related to a heaven-splitting artifact. Yuan Jilaozu seemed to have thought of something. He suddenly turned around and asked Lu Ping, What is this flying sword made of? Lu Ping had already regained control of the true spirit sword in his hand. Vigorous primary essence was continuously injected into the sword. He sneered and said, Do you think I will tell you? Yuan Jilaozu sneered and said, Old man is talking too much. When the old man captures you, this flying sword will naturally belong to the old man. Chapter 1481. At the same time that the crystal tower hung down the crystal light curtain, it also emitted a boundless fiery red wine mist. Not only did this mist cover Lu Ping's vision, but it also hindered his divine telekinesis. It even dyed the black poisonous mist in the fallen secret land into a black-red color. Although this fiery red wine mist limited Lu Ping's various means, it was not poisonous. Lu Ping had several means to avoid poison, but in the face of this boundless wine mist, he could only use his powerful divine telekinesis and jade phosphorus soul fire to guard a radius of several hundred feet. At the same time, he used the cloud sail to protect himself from the wine mist. If the distance was any further, Lu Ping seemed to be somewhat powerless in the wine mist. Yuan Jilaozu sneered and pointed to the crystal tower above his head. From the 8th floor of the tower, a crystal whip flew out, passing through the poisonous mist and falling on top of Lu Ping's head. Although Lu Ping's divine telekinesis was greatly limited, a distance of several hundred feet was enough for Lu Ping to adapt. Moreover, Lu Ping also had the 3 pure true pupils, which had reached the great accomplishment stage. He could see through the mist of several hundred feet. Seeing the crystal whip breaking through the air, the sword of real spirit had already slashed horizontally. The two collided with a loud bang, and an invisible airwave spread out in all directions with the two as the center. The space then became turbulent, but it immediately calmed down. However, at this time, Lu Ping focused all his attention on dealing with Yuan Jilaozu, so he did not notice this situation. Although Yuan Jilaozu noticed the strangeness of the surrounding space, Yuan Jilaozu, who was already on guard against the fallen secret land, only frowned. The appearance of these movements was not out of Yuan Jilaozu's expectation. The sword of true spirit and the crystal whip collided. One was of extremely high quality, but the Imperial Controller's cultivation was not good enough, but he used his full strength. The other was of slightly lower quality, but the Imperial Controller's strength was extremely strong, but he was restrained by the mysterious fallen tomb. This time, at least on the surface, the battle between the two ended in a draw. In reality, this attack was effortless for Origin Wine Laozu, but Lu Ping's blood was churning in his chest. It was only when he used the power of his Dharma power to calm the surging vital energy in his body. It had been a long time since Lu Ping had encountered such an overwhelming suppression in terms of strength. Yuan Jilaozu snorted coldly. The crystal pagoda rose into the air and slowly landed on top of Lu Ping's head, trying to suppress Lu Ping with absolute strength. However, the moment Yuan Jilaozu made his move, Lu Ping did not want to be outdone. In the black-red mist, where the poisonous mist and the wine mist blended, 12 stars suddenly began to twinkle, and the twinkle became brighter and brighter, knowing that the black-red mist could no longer be concealed. Ancestor Primal Wine's mind stirred. Even he had heard quite a few stories about Lu Tianping's rise to prominence. Back then, when Lu Tianping had used his supremely powerful life bond formation to defeat 12 mighty cultivators by the banks of the Yulon River in the Central Plains, even Ancestor Primal Wine had been stunned. Moreover, the distinctive characteristics of the life bond formation that Lu Tianping had praised seemed to be the 12 glistening multicolored pearls and the enchanting white jade lotus formation of the 9th stage. Just as Yuan Jilaozu realized Lu Ping's response, a white jade lotus immediately bloomed under Lu Ping's feet. The rune array diagram on the petals resonated with the 12 gentian pearls around it. Lu Ping finally managed to set up the natal array before the crystal pagoda completely landed on his head. Boom! As the crystal pagoda fell, Lu Ping and the natal array were pressed down by Yuan Jilaozu. The ground of the secret permafrost sank more than 10 feet in one fell swoop. Lu Ping finally relied on the gentian array to barely resist the crystal pagoda. However, the crystal light curtain that hung down from the top of the pagoda fell again. But this time, it was not for protection, but for pressure. Lu Ping's chest and abdomen shook, and he could no longer suppress the blood in his heart. He half knelt on the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood on the ground. The sword of true spirit suddenly turned into 9 dragons and wrapped around the crystal pagoda, trying to lift it up, helping the natal gentian array to finally resist the downward pressure of the crystal pagoda. However, Yuan Jilaozu seemed to have made up his mind to suppress Lu Ping under the crystal pagoda. He made a hand seal with both hands, and then made a pressing gesture with his palms facing down. The crystal pagoda suddenly sank down like a huge all that was smashed by a hammer. Lu Ping knelt on one knee and pushed down with both hands, barely supporting his body again. A purple-gold auspicious cloud appeared around Lu Ping, and a distant roar came from the auspicious cloud. A golden purple-gold claw suddenly appeared from the depths of the fog and reached out to the bottom of the crystal pagoda. The entire pagoda suddenly trembled, and Lu Ping, who was supporting himself with both hands, suddenly felt the pressure on his body lighten. He suddenly propped up his upper body, and the crystal pagoda was pushed up by 2 feet by Lu Ping. Yuan Jilaozu was furious, as if Lu Ping's resistance was a great humiliation to him. However, at this time, Lu Ping was suppressed under the crystal pagoda, and he could not see that there was a trace of fear and fear hidden in Yuan Jilaozu's angry expression. The fear came from Lu Ping, who had never stopped fighting under the crystal pagoda, and the fear came from the moment Lu Ping summoned the Dharma form of the dragon. Yuan Jilaozu suddenly felt a mysterious reaction from the secret land of the fallen mound. This mysterious feeling came quickly and disappeared even faster. The primal wine ancestor even hesitated for a moment, wondering if it was just a misperception. But Yuan Zhilaozu knew that it was not an illusion, but the mysterious existence hidden in the secret land of the fallen mound had been alarmed. Yuan Zhilaozu did not know whether the mysterious existence was alarmed the moment Lu Ping summoned the Dharma form of the dragon, because there was a mysterious connection between the two. Therefore, Yuan Zhilaozu wanted to completely suppress and kill Lu Ping before it happened, and then leave the secret land of the fallen mound as soon as possible. Yuan Zhilaozu simply hovered above the crystal pagoda, and a huge, suppressive force descended again. Lu Ping's upper body, which had just propped up, was about to be pressed down again. At this moment of life and death, the Dharma form of the dragon in the auspicious clouds no longer showed its head or tail. The purple-gold auspicious clouds instantly condensed towards the center, and the full appearance of the Dharma form of the dragon was immediately revealed to Lu Ping and Yuan Zhilaozu. The Dharma form of the dragon hovered above the lotus formation, and strong pure yang energy filled the entire Genshin formation. Yuan Zhilaozu looked at the Dharma form of the dragon with uncertain eyes. But in the end, Yuan Zhilaozu seemed to have made up his mind, and the aura around him suddenly began to fluctuate in an extremely strange manner. At this moment, Lu Ping could not raise his head to look at Yuan Zhilaozu, who was above his head. Because of the suppression of the crystal pagoda, even his divine thoughts could not break through the seal of the wine fog. But he could still feel the fluctuating and unusually strange aura coming from the top of the crystal pagoda. You, Lu Tianping, are the first person in history to be able to force the old man to transform into a real spirit with your pure yang cultivation base and use your full strength. A voice with a hint of exclamation sounded above Lu Ping's head. Then, there was a sudden loud roar, and a boundless pressure seemed to descend from ancient times. What was suspended in the void at the top of the crystal pagoda was not Yuan Zhilaozu, but a giant yellow tiger. It was a true giant tiger, surging with life force. It was not the condensation of a Dharma idol, nor was it an illusory divine ability. It was just that this giant tiger was different from a true demonic tiger. It was more like a brand new level of life, a manifestation of the soul, an expression of the nascent divinity, a method that was more beneficial for cultivators to continue climbing the peak of eternal life. This was the true spirit that primal wine ancestor had achieved. The giant tiger roared at the sky. The surrounding void was no longer just turbulent and shattered, but it was communicating with the outside world, with the outside world shrouded by the poisoned firmament wall. Boundless spiritual energy shot out from the void and gathered around the giant tiger. This spiritual energy did not come from the secret burial ground, but from the outside world. It came from the place where the spiritual energy of this world gathered, which the spiritual energy of the giant tiger's real spirit communicated with the space magic power. The giant tiger was roaring, and so was the Dharma form of the dragon. The Dharma form of the dragon was only a pure yang Dharma form, and it had not reached the sacred level of the real spirit. It was reasonable to say that when it encountered the real incarnation of the real spirit, it should be suppressed without any suspense. However, the Dharma form of the dragon did not seem to show the slightest fear of the giant tiger real spirit transformed by Yuan Zhilaozu. On the contrary, the Dharma form of the dragon hovered above the lotus array more and more eagerly, and it could not wait to fight with the real spirit giant tiger. Its roars provoked the giant tiger. The giant tiger looked disdainfully at the Dharma form of the dragon under its feet, then lifted its foot and gently stepped down. Lu Ping, who was suppressed under the crystal tower, could no longer hold on, and his whole body was pressed into the soil of the secret burial ground. Two feathers shining with a faint, seven-colored light were held tightly in Lu Ping's hands. At the moment of life and death, Lu Ping was waiting for Yuan Zhilaozu's final attack to completely activate the magic power of opening the sky that Luan Daoist had personally performed in the two feathers. However, at this moment, a strange sound came from the soil. Bang, bang, bang. The dull sound came from the soil. This was not the sound of Lu Ping's bones and blood vessels breaking under the suppression of the Crystal Palace. It was more like the roots under the soil had broken, because Lu Ping was pressed into the soil. At this time, The one who felt it the clearest was Lu Ping, who was completely suppressed. The sound of breaking was indeed from the roots under the soil. To be more precise, the broken roots were the two roots of the dragon locust tree that covered the entire secret burial ground. The Dharma form of a dragon. I didn't expect that after the fall of Jiao Daoren, there would still be a pure young Dharma form that is similar to a divine dragon in this world. Lu Xiaoyu, the old man really did not misjudge you. A voice sounded in Lu Ping's mind the moment he was crushed. This voice was none other than the Longhuai ancestor, who had never shown up. At this time, Lu Ping could finally breathe a sigh of relief. It seemed that he would not die this time. A steady stream of pure pneuma surged from the soil towards Lu Ping's body. This pneuma came from the broken roots of the dragon locust tree in the soil. The pure pneuma was also rich with vitality. It healed Lu Ping's injuries and replenished his real essence. Even Lu Ping could feel that his lifespan and cultivation seemed to have increased significantly at this moment. With the influx and refinement of the pneuma, Lu Ping even felt that he could use an incredible force to fight against the real spirit giant tiger that was suppressing him above his head. Just as the real spirit of Yuan Jilaozu was about to kill Lu Tianping, who had been suppressed to the bottom and had no strength to fight back, suddenly raised his head. Then, a huge force that was not weaker than his own gushed out from under his feet and lifted the real spirit of the giant tiger up. This could not be the strength of Lu Tianping. Yuan Jilaozu's heart trembled. He was immediately sure that it must be the mysterious existence in the secret burial ground that had taken action. Chapter 1482. For a moment, Yuan Jilaozu even had the thought of escaping, but he suppressed it in the end. Whether it was his pride as the guardian of the Crystal Palace, or his confidence in his own strength after becoming a celestial spirit, neither allowed him to escape without a fight. Lu Ping knocked the crystal pagoda high up into the air, and the true spirit tiger leaped into the air. The void in front of him was compressed, and in the blink of an eye, it was already above Lu Ping's head. Before the tiger's sharp claws could stab into his body, Lu Ping could already feel his heart being tainted by the tiger's killing intent. However, at this moment, Lu Ping had the Longhuai ancestor as his backing, so he had nothing to fear. The Gentian formation operated, and the distance between the two suddenly increased. However, this method was clearly not enough against Yuan Jilaozu's celestial spirit tiger. No matter how Lu Ping used his spatial abilities, Yuan Jilaozu was always able to follow him like a shadow. However, Lu Ping did not expect to be able to compete with Yuan Jilaozu in terms of spatial abilities, and he was only fighting for this moment. Seeing that there was no way to avoid it, the celestial spirit sword Moli finally displayed its magnificent power in Lu Ping's hands. The huge sword whirlpool directly sliced the space into pieces, and then countless spatial fragments gathered together with the boundless sword light at the center of the whirlpool. Suddenly, it traversed between Lu Ping and Yuan Jilaozu's celestial spirits. At the center of the sword light whirlpool, countless spatial fragments gathered, as if a strange spatial passage had been opened, leading to an unknown place. If Yuan Jilaozu did not stop, the celestial spirit tiger would fall into the sea of all rivers sword formation, and it would be cut by thousands of sword lights and devoured by the sword formation space. If it was before, Yuan Jilaozu, with his celestial body, did not need to worry about this supreme sword ability. Although Lu Ping's sword whirlpool was powerful, it might not be able to defeat a celestial spirit body. However, the power of the Sea of All Rivers sword technique that Lu Ping used was several times more powerful. The power contained within it even made Yuan Jilaozu's celestial spirit body fearful. At this moment, Yuan Qi was pouring into Lu Ping's body from the soil under his feet. With the help of this external force, Lu Ping could feel his strength skyrocketing, as if someone was pushing him from behind. His cultivation realm soared from the early stage of pure yang to the middle stage, late stage, and peak stage of pure yang. He knew that he had touched a mysterious threshold, and then Lu Ping felt that he was being carried across this threshold in one fell swoop and arrived at a whole new realm. At this moment, the dragon Dharma power hovering above Lu Ping's head seemed to have a telepathic connection with Lu Ping, and it entered his head, as if it wanted to merge with Lu Ping's body to form a celestial spirit. However, at this moment, Lu Ping was not a true pure yang. The moment the dragon Dharma power entered Lu Ping's body, it finally merged with his blood vessels and fell back into the core space along with the flow of his blood. However, in the process of Lu Ping's comprehension of advancing to a celestial spirit, the feeling of the moment the Dharma power and body merged was engraved in Lu Ping's mind. In the future, when Lu Ping really crossed this threshold, this feeling and understanding would definitely bring twice the results with half the effort for Lu Ping. Now that the Longhuai ancestor had brought him into this realm, Lu Ping could feel that he could cause mountains and rivers to collapse, space to collapse, and even this world was afraid of his existence. It could not wait to expel him from this world, and did not hesitate to threaten him with the power of heaven and earth. Moreover, Lu Ping could even feel that in this world, there was a hidden threat that could destroy a celestial spirit. This threat was extremely mysterious, and a thought emerged from the bottom of Lu Ping's heart: divine punishment. Despite the rejection from this world, there seemed to be a mysterious force coming from the far north. It seemed to be guiding Lu Ping there as quickly as possible. Only there would he be able to escape the rejection from this world. Only there would he be free from the threat of this world. Only then would he be able to leave this world and be free from its threats. Only then would he be able to enter a new world. Lu Ping was doing his best to adapt and familiarize himself with this new realm. If he wanted to quickly control this new realm and comprehend the mysteries within, the most direct way was undoubtedly to fight. Only by fighting like life and death could he completely engrave the comprehension of this realm into Lu Ping's heart. And at this time, Lu Ping used the power of the true spirit realm to look back at all the details of his cultivation. He found that he had many flaws in using his innate divine abilities, and that the power of his divine abilities had this much room for improvement. The Genshin Great Array could actually be improved like this, and the power of the pure yang spiritual treasure could not be used to its peak. The path of cultivation could be walked like this to avoid more detours. Lu Ping knew this was a rare chance. His cultivation had risen to the true spirit realm with the help of the Longhuai ancestor, but this increase was just an external force, it was just an illusion. After passing the current crisis, the Longhuai ancestor's external force would be withdrawn and Lu Ping's cultivation would fall back to the early pure yang realm. However, after Lu Ping survived the current crisis, this experience would surely help him accumulate a strong foundation for his future cultivation. In the end, it would become a solid foundation for his future cultivation, just like the 100 rivers flow into the sea that Lu Ping was casting now. The structure of the Great River Flow's East Sword Art was composed of the 5 basic skills. Lu Ping could even reverse engineer the Great River Flow's East Sword Art from the 5 basic skills into a brand new Great River Flow's East Sword Art. However, looking at the 100 Rivers Sea Sword Art that he was using now, although it could force back the Yuan Jilaozu with one sword, and its power could be said to be extremely strong, in Lu Ping's eyes, this sword art was extremely simple. This simple did not mean that there was anything wrong with this supreme sword art divine ability, but that this supreme sword art divine ability was much more extensive and profound than Lu Ping had imagined. What Lu Ping had displayed now was only the most basic power of this sword art. The 5 basic divine abilities of the All Rivers into the Sea Sword technique were merely the most basic foundation of this supreme divine sword technique. Apart from the 5 basic divine abilities, this divine sword technique could also contain more divine sword techniques as a framework, allowing the power of the divine ability to increase by a large margin. As the saying went, the sea can contain hundreds of rivers, and those with tolerance are great. This was where the true essence of the All Rivers into the Sea Sword technique lay. Moreover, after using the 5 great basic divine abilities to form the foundation of the 100 Rivers Sea Sword Art, if one wanted to incorporate the Sword Art divine ability into the framework of this Sword Art divine ability, it could only be done with the Supreme Sword Art divine ability. In other words, the 100 Rivers Sea Sword Art itself was a set of Sword Art divine ability that could fuse other Supreme Sword Art divine abilities into one. The more it could fuse, the more powerful the Sword Art divine ability would be. The reason why Lu Ping could not understand the true essence of this Supreme Sword Art divine ability and could only use the most basic power of this sword art divine ability was because the 100 Rivers Sea sword art was a true spirit-level divine ability. Only true spirit cultivators could truly use the 100 Rivers Sea sword art. Only true spirit cultivators could fuse their supreme sword techniques into the structure of the 100 Rivers into the Sea sword art, allowing this supreme sword technique to become more complete and its power to increase. It was not that Lu Ping did not have this idea before, but for the 100 Rivers Sea sword art, Lu Ping could only use the other sword art divine abilities as a reference and could not fuse them together. But now, with the help of Patriarch Long Huai's essence, Lu Ping had temporarily raised his cultivation base to a new height. At the same time, he had also discovered the true essence of the all rivers run into the sea. This also meant that Lu Ping could now truly grasp the true essence of this sword technique with his pure yang cultivation base. Over the years, Lu Ping had studied many supreme sword techniques and skills. Other than the self-created Great River Flowing East, there were also the Rising Heavens sword art from Yingtian sect, Rising Heavens sword art from Songhai sect, the Songhai sword art from the Koikarp clan, and so on. He had even sparred with the sky-cracking sword saint, Ziyang Palace's direct disciple, and other great sword cultivators. Now that he had mastered the Sea of 100 Rivers sword art, which combined all kinds of supreme sword techniques, Lu Ping's swordsmanship would surely improve by leaps and bounds. The instant the true spirit tiger was forced back, Lu Ping once again took out the spiritual treasure and cut it in half towards the true spirit that Lao Tzu had transformed into. This time, the true spirit Lao Tzu no longer had the courage to fight the pure yang spiritual treasure head-on like before. Facing the full force of Lu Ping's scissors, the true spirit had no choice but to dodge to the side. In fact, at this moment, the strongest of Lu Ping's various techniques had become the two halves of the pure yang spiritual treasure. Whether it was the sword art divine ability or other magical abilities, or even Lu Ping's natal Genshin formation, Lu Ping could see the path to increase the power of these techniques in the future. However, he did not have the time to increase the power of these techniques at this time. Instead, he might as well cut the spiritual treasure in half. The more essence energy he injected, the more powerful the pure yang spiritual treasure would be. It was as simple as that. When the giant tiger true spirit that Yuan Ju Laozu had transformed into dodged Lu Ping's scissors, it saw the two halves of the spiritual treasure in Lu Ping's hand open and close again. Two blades of light cut through the void, and Yuan Ju Laozu had to dodge again. The thing that Lu Ping lacked the most right now was an endless supply of pure spirit energy to temporarily reach the true spirit realm. Although the two halves of the spiritual treasure was strong, it consumed a lot of true spirit energy. However, Lu Ping did not care about this at all. The scissors in his hand cut again, and this unreasonable method made Yuan Ju Laozu unable to do anything to Lu Ping. When Yuan Ju Laozu had no way to deal with Lu Ping and his heart was filled with thoughts of retreating, he heard a chi-la sound coming from behind him. Yuan Ju Laozu knew that after the giant tiger true spirit dodged the two halves of the spiritual treasure, the pure yang spiritual treasure's blade lights still closed and created a hole in the 10,000 poison sky wall in the distance. Chapter 1483. On Yankun Island in the North Sea, Linyu Laozu stood in the middle of the island in a daze. After a long time, he let out a long sigh and slowly rose from the island. In Linyu Laozu's eyes, Yankun Island looked like a huge array board that was operating. With a flash of light in his hand, the long flute appeared in his palm. With a flick of his wrist, the long flute was thrown towards the center of Yankun Island. Ga, a series of strange sounds rang out. It was as if a few of the core talisman inscriptions of a well-used formation had been destroyed. At first, the entire formation was unable to operate smoothly. Then, it seemed as if it had broken away from its original operation and was completely out of control. The entire Yankun Island's formation began to operate in a strange manner. It seemed as if it would collapse at any moment. Seeing that the entire array on Yankun Island was about to be completely destroyed, Linyu Laozu's heart skipped a beat. He felt a cold killing intent flash by his side. Linyu Laozu seemed to have sensed it. His body suddenly flashed, and his entire body shifted 30 feet from his original position. A black light flashed in the direction where Lin Yu Laozu had previously been standing. I knew that Lu Xiaoyu would definitely not be at ease leaving the old man here, so he really sent people to keep an eye on you. However, your secret technique of concealment is so superb. Could it be that you are the famous demon sword In Tianchu of Zhenling? A cold snort sounded in the void. In Tianchu seemed to have already predicted that his sneak attack would not be able to do anything to the pure yang cultivator in front of him. After his attack failed, he immediately shook the entire space as a cover and waited for an opportunity to strike again. Zhenling is indeed full of talents. There is actually another late Dharma adept among the third generation of adepts. It's a pity that your sect has made too many enemies. The old man had no choice but to do so. Please forgive me. Patriarch Lin Yu extended his hand and beckoned towards Yin Kuan Island, attempting to recall the spiritual treasure flute that had destroyed the entire array formation. However, Lin Yu Laozu's expression changed. Not only was the long flute not recalled, but the huge amount of essential yuan that had been injected into the treasure in an attempt to destroy the array did not stop either. Instead, when Lin Yu Laozu recalled the treasure, the essential yuan in his body became more and more uncontrollably sucked into the treasure. At this moment, In Tianchu saw another opportunity. The short sword in his hand once again pierced through the void, directly piercing through Lin Yu Laozu's protective magical power. Lin Yu Laozu was still trying to recall the treasure. In the face of In Tianchu's fierce attack, he could only dodge again. However, the essential yuan in his body was becoming more and more uncontrollable, causing Lin Yu Laozu's body to be affected as well. Immediately after, he felt a chill on his waist. Under Lin Yu Laozu's shocked and angry eyes, In Tianchu had already cut a wound on his waist. The cold essential yuan flowed through the wound and into his blood vessels, but was immediately forced out by Lin Yu Laozu's pure yang essential yuan. In Tianchu quickly retreated after the blow. However, Lin Yu Laozu, a dignified pure yang adept, had actually been tricked by In Tianchu. How could he not be angry? Could it be that all the late Dharma adepts in Zhenling were like Lu Tianping and had the ability to challenge those of a higher level? For a moment, Lin Yu Laozu did not even care about the long flute that was trapped by the matrix under his feet. He directly slapped the air in the direction of In Tianchu, who had been pushed away. The entire space suddenly collapsed. In Tianchu could not dodge in time and was hit directly on the right side of his chest. Instantly, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Lin Yu Laozu snorted coldly and was about to rush forward to kill In Tianchu. Unexpectedly, as his body moved slightly, he realized that at this moment, not only had his treasure been trapped and his essential yuan was being continuously absorbed, but even his body movement had been affected. He could only watch helplessly as the heavily injured In Tianchu escaped, instantly hiding in the void and disappearing. At this moment, Lin Yu Laozu realized that he was in big trouble. Lu Ping was not suspicious of his sudden arrival and was on guard. This was a trap that had been specially set up for Lin Yu Laozu. Relying on his skyrocketing cultivation base and endless true essence, Lu Ping used the pure yang spirit scissors in his hand to cut at Yuan Jiu Ancestor's true spirit tiger form again and again. Helpless, Yuan Jiu Ancestor could only dodge the scissors. However, perhaps because Lu Ping couldn't control his skyrocketing cultivation base or for some other reason, the spirit scissors were cut in half. Even after missing the opportunity to kill Yuan Jiu Ancestor, the sharp scissors didn't disappear. Instead, they continued to cut open holes in the heavenly poison wall one after another. Surging poisonous fog kept gushing out from the holes, and the heavenly poison wall that would quickly close up after being cut open seemed to have lost its ability to repair itself. Lu Tianping, what are you doing? Do you want to break the sky poison wall? Once the poisonous fog inside spreads, it will inevitably lead to a catastrophe in the cultivation world of the East Sea. Do you, Lu Tianping, have the courage to bear such a sin? At this moment, Yuan Wine Laozu could already see that Lu Ping seemed to be using the spiritual treasure scissors to prevent him from getting close, but in fact, he was destroying the sky poison wall. Yuan Laozu naturally knew that Lu Ping must have borrowed the power of the mysterious existence hidden in the fallen secret land to be evenly matched with him. At this moment, Lu Ping must certainly be trying to break the seal on the sky poison wall, which was naturally reasonable. When Yuan Laozu saw that Lu Ping ignored his words and just blindly controlled the spiritual treasure scissors to attack him while taking the opportunity to destroy the sky poison wall, he could not help but be shocked and said, "Lu Tianping, are you already under someone's control?" Lu Ping was slightly stunned and said with a smile, "Yuan Sr., since you can't do anything to me, why don't you retreat? Don't tell me you want to continue to entangle with me?" Yuan Laozu looked a little exasperated and said, "Lu Tianping, do you know what kind of existence is sealed in the sky poison wall? I hope you don't make a mistake." Lu Ping laughed and said, "Now that I am being chased by Senior, I am in a precarious situation. If I can save my life, why would I make a mistake? Senior, please don't joke." Yuan Laozu said angrily, "Old man, please advise me with kind words. If you rashly open the sky poison wall, the existence sealed in it will definitely cause suffering to all living beings, and you, Lu Tianping, will be the culprit." Lu Ping said seriously, "Oh, in that case, Senior, you know what is sealed in the sky poison wall. I hope Yuan Laozu can dispel my doubts. Why are you so afraid?" Yuan Laozu was speechless. To put it bluntly, the Crystal Palace didn't know who was sealed in the sky poison wall. Back then, the real spirit of the Crystal Palace, Laozu, and two pure young practitioners went missing inside, but it was because the Crystal Palace wanted to provoke them. Apart from that, the Crystal Palace still knew nothing about the Longhui ancestor. The so-called suffering to all living beings was just a subconscious thought of by the Crystal Palace. Yuan Laozu was stumped by Lu Ping's question, but he still said, "Not to mention the existence sealed in it. If the protective wall is broken and the poisonous fog is allowed to spread, the entire East Sea cultivation world will suffer." As soon as Yuan Laozu's voice fell, the poisonous fog that had drifted out from the holes cut by Lu Ping began to shrink back. The surrounding black poisonous fog also suddenly began to shrink back into the depths of the secret land. Seeing this, Lu Ping knew that it would be difficult to encounter such an opportunity in the future, so he directly opened the space entrance of the Golden House. The endless poisonous fog was attracted by the 1,000 poison source liquid and condensed into golden, auspicious clouds above the bluestone pool. The clouds then turned into golden raindrops and fell into the pool. At the bottom of the pool, a blue light ball condensed by the 1,000 wonder dew was rolling, as if it was extracting the essence of the pool and condensing more 1,000 wonder dew. At the same time, dozens of strange black flames burned around Lu Ping. These flames also seemed to use the poisonous fog as fuel. The more the poisonous fog condensed and condensed, the higher the black flames rose. At this time, how could Yuan Laozu not know that the so-called weakening of the poisonous fog and the firmament wall of myriad poison that allowed cultivators to come and go freely was all because of the mysterious existence sealed in the secret land of the secret land? At this time, Yuan Laozu could no longer stop Lu Ping. Coupled with his fear of the mysterious existence, there was no longer any meaning for him to stay. He could only say fiercely, "Lu Tianping, behave yourself. Today, the old man will let you go. If what you do today really brings a great disaster to the East Sea, the old man will drag you, Zhengling, to the grave even if I have to give up my cultivation." After speaking, Essence Wine Laozu withdrew his true spirit and transformed back into his human form. The gourd under his feet suddenly spewed out wine mist, and he retreated out of the myriad firmament poison wall. "You come and go as you please. How rude. You really are as domineering as that tigress. Do you really think that the old man can't do anything to you?" An angry roar rumbled like thunder, shaking the entire poisonous mist in the secret land. Yuan Laozu asked in surprise, "Who are you?" Lu Ping naturally recognized the voice of the Longhui ancestor. At this moment, Lu Ping suddenly felt a strange spatial turbulence coming from the depths of the secret land. Then, a root suddenly rose from the ground in front of the hole in the myriad firmament poison wall. Then, it weaved into a large net in midair, blocking the escape route of Yuan Laozu. Yuan Laozu snorted coldly, and the crystal pagoda directly broke the large net of roots. However, Lu Ping saw a black root suddenly break the space and appear behind Yuan Laozu. By the time Yuan Laozu noticed it, it was already too late to dodge. His back had to take the blow, and his whole body was sent flying out of the myriad firmament poison wall. Lu Xiaoyu, next, I will have to borrow the strength of my little friend. The entire secret land covered by the myriad firmament poison wall had a radius of more than 1,000 miles. It was a huge island. Coupled with the nearby sea area, the area covered by the myriad firmament poison wall was 3,000 to 5,000 miles. At this time, the black poisonous mist that permeated the myriad firmament poison wall was slowly converging towards the center of the secret land. The poisonous mist in the entire myriad firmament poison wall was thinning. At this time, looking at the center of the secret land from a distance, one could already see an indomitable object standing in the center of the secret land. The entire myriad firmament poison wall looked like a black curtain hanging down from its crown, but in fact, it was firmly imprisoned in the black curtain. Chapter 1484. Ancestor Lin Yu decisively abandoned the flute and tried to break free from the shackles of Eternal Earth Island. However, as he struggled to break free, In Tianchu ignored his injuries and once again forced his way back to Ancestor Lin Yu. Brat, you're the one courting death. At this time, even Lin Yu Laozu was panicking. He could feel that every time he struggled to break free, the shackles would become stronger. If this dragged on, and the shackles became stronger, even Lin Yu Laozu didn't know if he would have the chance to break free. Just now, Ancestor Lin Yu was about to break free after accumulating power, but unexpectedly, In Tianchu suddenly attacked, causing Ancestor Lin Yu to fall short of success at the last moment. However, at this time, 3 rays of light suddenly cut through the night sky from the direction of Tianling Mountain. Each of these 3 rays of light carried a boundless aura. It was obvious that the 3 great cultivators of Zhenling who were guarding Tianling Mountain had arrived. Lin Yu Laozu was startled. He suddenly realized that not only had he been tricked by Lu Ping, but he had also been tricked by the Yuan clan. He had become the bait to lure all the great cultivators of Zhenling out of Tianling Mountain. The real goal of the Yuan clan was Tianling Mountain. Before the rays of light reached Yin Kuan Island, one of the rays of light had already cut through the void. A long whip turned into a bolt of lightning and attacked Lin Yu Laozu from the left and right with In Tianchu. It was obvious that the sect master of Zhenling, Lu Tianling, had personally attacked. However, at this time, Lin Yu Laozu had already made up his mind. He no longer wanted to take back the spirit treasure he had nurtured for many years. He wanted to break free from the shackles of Yin Kuan Island's grand formation. Even when facing In Tianchu and Lu Tianling's joint attack, he only planned to use his defensive ability to resist. But at this time, one of the 2 rays of light that came with Lu Tianling turned into an 8-colored flame, burning through the void toward Lin Yu Laozu. Mei Tianqin was recognized by one of the 6 Luan Daoist life feathers. With the power of this life feather, she was able to quickly reach the late Dharma stage. Not only that, but this life feather also contained a trace of the Luan Daoist's understanding of fire. This caused Mei Tianqin's life spirit fire to increase from 7 to 8 colors, greatly increasing its power. Even if Patriarch Lin Yu could barely withstand the attacks of 2 great cultivators, his defensive magic would inevitably be destroyed. At this time, facing the attack of a 3rd great cultivator, he had no choice but to defend with all his might. Thus, he lost the opportunity to escape from Yin Kuan Island. At the same time, the 3rd great cultivator did not join the 3 who were besieging Patriarch Lin Yu. Instead, the 3rd great cultivator descended onto the Eternal Earth Island grand formation that was madly operating. The beam of light disappeared, but the person who walked out was not the Zhenling sect's great practitioner, Tian Xiang ancestor, but a young early Dharma adept. However, no one knew why the beam of light had been able to unleash an aura that was no weaker than that of a late Dharma adept when it streaked across the night sky. The moment this young adept landed on Yin Kuan Island, He quickly flew in the direction of the spirit treasure flute that Lin Yu Laozu had inserted into the island. When he arrived at the location, Deng Tianming looked at the huge pit that was 20 to 30 feet deep and 50 to 60 feet wide. At this time, the bottom of the pit was already filled with underground water. The body of the spirit treasure had long been submerged in this small lake. When Deng Tianming saw this, he stomped his foot and a series of seal inscriptions immediately began to appear on the ground. These seal inscriptions spread along the edge of the pit, all the way to the surface of the ground that was being covered by the underground water. In an instant, the position of the spirit treasure was confirmed. The entire surface of Yankuan Island had already been connected by a formation, and most of these masterpieces had been created by Deng Tianming. Therefore, he was the only one who could understand why ancestor Lin Yu was still able to create such a huge crater under such circumstances. After confirming the location of the spirit treasure flute, Deng Tianming's face showed a hint of fanaticism as he muttered to himself, using a formation to trap and kill a pure yang cultivator, then using the pure yang as a sacrifice to bring Fei Ling Island to the surface and merge with Tianling Island. Hee, I didn't expect such an exquisite and powerful technique to come from me. What a blessing. If I hadn't followed Brother Lu to Zhenling, my formation skills would never have reached such a level. Today, I will use this pure yang adept to lay the foundation for my formation skills to reach a new level. As he spoke, a purple gold scale suddenly rose from Deng Tianming's hand. On this scale, there were 9 tiny formations that were so intricate that even a Dharma adept's divine will would not be able to detect them clearly. On top of this scale, there was also a strong aura that was equivalent to that of a late Dharma adept. This scale was the reverse scale that Lu Ping had specially left for Deng Tianming before he left the North Sea. It was the scale that recorded the 9 foundation formations of Jiao Daoren. The strong aura that it carried made Deng Tianming look like a late Dharma adept, but in reality, he was just a formation grandmaster who had just entered the early Dharma stage not long ago. Deng Tianming could sense that the reverse scale had accurately landed on the spirit treasure flute that was still struggling after being trapped in the pit. Lin Yu Laozu, who was defending against the attacks of 3 great adepts in the sky above Yankuan Island, suddenly lost track of his life spirit treasure. A shout that made Lin Yu Laozu's heart break suddenly rang out from Yankuan Island. Sacrifice, begin. Third great uncle, since we have already ordered that Pure Yang Laozu and Lin Yu to destroy the formation that Jinling used to capture the 7 Stars Cave Heaven, Lu Tianping's fate is unknown, and Jinling is no longer a concern. Why should we be so desperate to destroy Jinling? Right now, the most important thing is to find the 7 Stars Cave Heaven. Yuan Feixiang was obviously displeased that Yuan Tongtian had delayed the search for the 7 Stars Cave Heaven. Before Yuan Tongtian could say anything, another pure young adept beside him had already reprimanded him. How dare you? How can a junior like you interfere with the decisions of the elders in the family? Do you know how to respect your elders? Yuan Feixiang's expression was wooden as he said, I don't dare. However, from his expression, it was clear that he was still dissatisfied. The other pure young adept from the Yuan clan was about to reprimand him, but Yuan Tongtian waved his hand to stop him. He smiled and said, 7th brother, don't be angry. It's a good thing that this kid has his own opinions. Yuan Daotian was clearly still brooding over this. He said, they are just arrogant. As one of the most outstanding disciples of the 3rd generation, 3rd brother, and the other elders in the family have spoiled him too much. This has undoubtedly fueled their arrogance, causing them to have no respect for their elders. They even dare to question the decisions of the elders in the family. If we don't suppress their arrogance, they will really think that the current Yuan clan is under their control. 7th brother, why are you so angry? Yuan Tongtian turned to Yuan Feixiang and said in a low voice, hurry up and apologize to your 7th great uncle. Yuan Feixiang was just about to bow and apologize when Yuan Daotian waved his hand and said impatiently, there's no need. The old man has been in a bad mood these past few days. Originally, when I received 3rd brother's decree, I thought that I would come overseas to relax. Who would have thought that because of this matter, the family would be in a foul mood because of Thunderclap, Kuer, and you 3. The 3 of you have your own backers. The old man originally wanted to stay out of this mess, not wanting to get involved with the 3 of you. Who would have thought that he would fall into third brother's trap? How infuriating. Yuan Tongtian smiled and apologized. This is the old man's fault. Seventh brother, please don't take it to heart. Yuan Daotian sighed and said, forget it. There's no point in apologizing at this time. I'm afraid that the family has already decided that the old man will stand on Feixiang's side. Even if he has a mouth, he won't be able to clear it. Yuan Tongtian and Yuan Feixiang looked at each other and looked a little embarrassed. At this time, Yuan Daotian said, fortunately, compared to those two brats who only know how to form cliques in the family, Feixiang knows how to do some practical things. Regardless of whether this small world can really break the curse of our Yuan family of not having a true spirit cultivator, at least this is a plan for the future of the Yuan family. At least the old man's trip to the North Sea was not in vain. Yuan Tongtian and Yuan Feixiang were both overjoyed. Yuan Tongtian laughed and said, haha, with seventh brother's help, this plan is more likely to succeed. Yuan Feixiang bowed and said, thank you for your understanding, seventh great uncle. Yuan Daotian snorted coldly. His expression was still not worried, but it was not as stern as before. Only now did Yuan Tongtian remember. Yuan Feixiang explained, the small world is related to the foundation of the Holy Land's inheritance and the rise and fall of the sect. It can be said to be a matter of life and death. Jinling will definitely fight with the family to the end. If we only get rid of Lu Tianping and destroy Yankuan Island, then Jinling might raise another Zhang Tianping or Li Tianping in the future. Cutting the weeds and leaving the roots to grow again is a wise decision. Since we have this opportunity, we must at least destroy Jinling. At that time, the seven-star heavenly abode will still be in the family's pocket. Yuan Feixiang said, this disciple understands third great uncle's words. It's just that Jinling once had a true spirit cultivator, Laozu. The sect protecting array also has true spirit Laozu's methods. If Jinling insists on defending, it won't be easy for us to attack Tianling Mountain. Yuan Tongtian laughed and said, that's why we have to lure them out. At that moment, Yankuan Island outside of Tianling Mountain started to shake violently. The entire sea started to shake. Not just Tianling Mountain, even Yuan Tongtian and the others who were lying in ambush dozens of miles away from Tianling Mountain could feel the tremors. Haha, the show is about to start. If I'm not wrong, Yankuan Island must be a place that Jinling values. With such a huge commotion, how many of the great adepts that Jinling left on Tianling Mountain will rush over to Yankuan Island? Yuan Feixiang said, Jinling now has a pure young adept, which is Lu Tianping. Other than that, there are 4 late Dharma adepts, Tianxiang, Tianlin, Tianling, and Tianqin. Other than Jiang Tianlin, who is currently in the East Sea, there should be 3 more great adepts on Tianling Mountain. Chapter 1485. Yuan Jilaozu had just left the sky of Poison Wall when he was startled. He then let out a sigh and reached out with his hand. There was a fluctuation in space, and a crystal hammer broke through space and flew towards Yuan Jilaozu. The crystal pagoda above his head released a curtain of light that sucked the crystal hammer into the pagoda. When Yuan Jilaozu chased Lu Ping into the sky of Poison Wall, he heard Danju Laozu's loud shout. Yuan Jilaozu already knew that Danju Laozu could no longer stay in this world. From now on, the Crystal Palace would be handed over to him to protect. But he didn't know how Xiao Baiyu, who was being chased by Danju Laozu, was doing. This time, the 2 true spirit cultivators of the Crystal Palace had taken a risk and Yuan Jilaozu might have already failed. If Danju Laozu couldn't deal with Xiao Baiyu, then the situation in the overseas region would truly become a 3-way war. Just as Yuan Jilaozu placed the crystal hammer in his hand, there was another fluctuation in space. Yuan Jilaozu's face turned cold and the overlord hammer that he had just placed in the crystal pagoda appeared in his hand once again. A passage opened in space and Xiao Baiyu walked out. Seeing Yuan Jilaozu in front of him, he was stunned. Yuan Jilaozu's face was filled with disappointment when he saw Xiao Baiyu's appearance. But when he sensed the aura surging from Xiao Baiyu's body, he said in a surprised voice, "You've actually formed a true spirit body." Xiao Baiyu had clearly chased after the overlord hammer. Seeing Yuan Jilaozu here, He knew that the Overlord hammer had fallen into his hands. He also had a slightly disappointed expression and said, "What, do you want to fight with this Xiao?" Elemental Wine Laozu smiled bitterly. "Are you sure you want to fight with the old man?" Xiao Baiyu coldly snorted. He naturally understood what it meant for two cultivators who had just reached the true spirit realm to fight, so he observed his expression and said in surprise, "From the looks of it, could it be that my Lu Xiaoyu escaped from your hands?" The bitterness on Yuan Jilaozu's face deepened, and the curiosity on Xiao Baiyu's face grew. Just as he was about to inquire further, he heard a clear whistle, which was closely followed by the buzzing of flying swords. Xiao Baiyu's expression tightened. He was a swordsmanship expert, so he naturally knew what the sword cries that filled the sky meant. Only a top-notch swordsman with a top-notch flying sword could have such earth-shattering power. The two of them looked in the direction of the sound. Xiao Baiyu found that the color of the sky poison wall, which had always been dark, was much lighter at this time. He could even vaguely see the scene of the fallen secret area through the wall. What surprised Xiao Baiyu even more was that there were many cuts on the heavenly poisonous wall at this time. Each cut was at least a mile long, and the length of the heavenly poisonous wall was more than 10 miles. These huge cuts were like shocking scars on the heavenly poisonous wall. There were so many cuts on the shield, but there was no poisonous mist that was imprisoned by the shield leaking out. Xiao Baiyu had to turn around and look doubtfully at Yuan Jilaozu on the side. Yuan Jilaozu smiled bitterly and said, "The spiritual treasure is broken in two. That Lu Tianping seems to want to break the sky poison wall." "What?" Xiao Baiyu was shocked and said, "You didn't stop him?" Yuan Jilaozu glanced at Xiao Baiyu and said, "Mr. Xiao, it may be too late to stop him now." Xiao Baiyu naturally would not be fooled by Yuan Jilaozu. He said with a smile, "If you can't stop him, how can I? Lu Xiaoyu is my ally, Skyrend. What's more, something has obviously happened in this fallen secret area. The sky poison wall is riddled with holes, but there is no poisonous mist leaking out. It seems that even if Lu Xiaoyu breaks the sky poison wall, it will not be a big deal." Yuan Jilaozu's eyes twitched fiercely and he said, "I'm not afraid to tell Mr. Xiao that there is probably an existence hidden in this fallen secret area that is not inferior to you and me. This Lu Tianping probably has some secret agreement with that existence to let him out. Mr. Xiao, you have to think about it carefully. This is an unknown threat." Xiao Baiyu was slightly startled, and then he sneered and said, "So what? Can you and I go up and fight to the death with that unknown existence, and then rush to the North Ice Field together?" Yuan Jilaozu said with a strange expression, "It is naturally not appropriate to fight with that mysterious existence, but it is not impossible to stop Lu Tianping. If that is the case, why didn't you stop him?" Xiao Baiyu sneered and said, "Or you have already made a move, but you can't do anything to Lu Xiaoyu?" Without waiting for Yuan Jilaozu to explain, Xiao Baiyu flung his sleeve and said unhappily, "Mr. Xiao, don't stir up trouble again." Although Yuan Jilaozu looked embarrassed, his eyes were deep, as if he had already sensed something from Xiao Baiyu's words. As everyone was speaking, a beam of sword light soared into the sky from the myriad poison sky wall. It pierced through the top of the myriad poison sky wall, which was high in the clouds, and disappeared into the void. The sword light wandered in the clouds, and the top of the sky poison wall was cut open. A desolate, distant, but vigorous aura suddenly burst out from the sky poison wall, causing the aura of the two real spirits Laozu, who were watching from afar, to stagnate. Xiao Baiyu looked up at the soaring sword Shi and said doubtfully, "This sword technique is very similar to the Heavenly Gate sword formation of the Koi clan. But as for its power, the old man was ashamed of his inferiority in the past." Yuan Jilaozu looked solemn and said, "With such an aura, how long has the existence sealed in the sky poison wall lived in the cultivation world?" Xiao Baiyu's expression changed, and he said, "Oh, it seems that Yuan Jilaozu knows a lot about the so-called mysterious existence." Yuan Jilaozu snorted coldly and did not answer. At this time, a loud roar shook the entire sky poison wall, which enveloped the secret land, violently. A pure yang dragon chased after a pure yang flying sword and broke through the sky poison wall. In the void, the dragon and the flying sword merged into one, and it slashed down at the sky poison wall below. Previously, the sword that cut through the myriad poison sky wall from the fallen star secret land was from the west to the east. But now, the sword that slashed down from outside the myriad poison sky wall was from the south to the north. It just happened to cut a huge cross on the top of the myriad poison sky wall. In the Phantom Palace, Skyrend and Songyu Laozu were actually the most powerful. Although Yuan Feng Laozu was filled with hatred, Xiao Baiyu had advanced to true spirit, and the situation was stronger than him. Even if the Crystal Palace could still suppress Skyrend with its deep foundation, and even if Xiao Baiyu, who had lost his natal flying sword, had lost his strength, true spirit Laozu was true spirit Laozu. There was no doubt that Skyrend had established a complete true spirit inheritance, so it was inevitable that the East Sea would welcome the two holy lands. In any case, the Crystal Palace was bound to suffer the greatest impact. Yuan Feng Laozu couldn't do anything to Songyu Laozu at this moment, but he vented all his resentment on Zhenling. Xiao Baiyu could advance to true spirit under the suppression of Danju Laozu. Could it be that Lu Tianping, who had just advanced to pure yang, also had this ability? If not, how could he escape from senior brother Yuanjiu? If he couldn't escape, without Lu Tianping, Zhenling in the North Sea would be nothing. The Crystal Palace could immediately invade the North Sea before Skyrend. The North Sea was not as barren as before. Whether it was the large spiritual stone mine on the Frost Island, the huge cultivation resources on the Scarlet Mist Island, or the wealth that Zhenling had accumulated in the North Sea, they were all delicious cakes that even the Crystal Palace would covet. However, at this time, Songyu Laozu, who was originally an ally of Zhenling, chose to be a bystander and watch Yuan Feng Laozu suppress Jiang Tianlin. Even the three medium-sized sects in the North Sea chose to remain silent at this time. Only the Luoxin sect, a medium-sized sect that had risen in the East Sea in the past 100 years, still stood firmly on Zhenling's side. However, right at this moment, the firmament of the Thousand Poisons, which was hundreds of miles away from the Phantom Island, was undergoing a series of huge changes. Even the Dharma adepts from the various sects in the Phantom Palace were alarmed. However, none of the people present had their divine will that far away. Fortunately, the firmament of the Thousand Poisons had caused a large enough commotion that the Dharma adepts from hundreds of miles away could see what was happening. Two purple-gold blade beams kept opening and closing up in the sky. Every time they did so, they would create a large hole on the firmament wall of myriad poisons. The cultivators from the various sects cried out in shock as thick poisonous fog surged out. Next, however, the poisonous fog would strangely retract back into the firmament wall. This purplish gold blade light broke the spiritual treasure in two. Finally, some cultivators recognized the blade light that kept closing in the sky. Now, this spiritual treasure in two was a famous pure yang spiritual treasure in the cultivation world. More importantly, this item's reputation was mostly built by the hands of the North Sea Water Sword Immortal. The various sects cultivators looked at Jiang Tianlin with all sorts of shocked and inexplicable expressions. Among these gazes, there was one thing that was the same. This guy actually did not die under the pursuit of the real spirit Laozu. Not only did he not die, but looking at the power of the pure yang spiritual treasure in two, it seemed that the North Sea Water Sword Immortal had been attacking the real spirit Laozu in the Crystal Palace. How could the North Sea Water Sword Immortal be so ferocious? At this time, compared to Jiang Tianlin, who was smiling and calm after letting out a sigh of relief, Yuan Feng Laozu was not as calm. Everyone could see that Yuan Feng Laozu's face was full of gloom. The real spirit Laozu was shameless enough to attack a junior pure yang cultivator. Not only did he not manage to finish him off, it also looked like he was being suppressed. Such a scene was enough for the Dharma adepts of the various sects to reevaluate the situation before them, such as Laozu. From the looks of it, this guy from Zhanling's sect is going to shatter the firmament poison wall. Many people also noticed the clues. If he was really going to fight the real spirit Laozu of the Crystal Palace, there was no need to make such a big scene. If the sky wall of poison is destroyed, what if the poisonous fog inside breaks out? I'm afraid the entire East Sea cultivation world will suffer. This was obviously a Dharma adept who was close to the Crystal Palace. His words were full of accusations against Lu Ping. Old Ancestor Azure Feather's expression changed at this moment, and he snorted coldly. Fool, don't you see that this myriad poison sky wall has already been riddled with holes by fellow Taoist Lu Tianping? Yet the poisonous mist hasn't dispersed from the beginning to the end? Chapter 1486. In the illusionary spirit palace, Songyu Laozu, who had been silent ever since the news of Xiao Baiyu becoming a celestial spirit, suddenly rebuked others for Lu Ping. Zhang Tianlin understood, but he still thanked Songyu Laozu for his generosity. However, before everyone could recover from the water sword immortal's tyrannical strength, they first saw a sky-piercing sword light cut a huge hole in the sky wall of myriad poisons from the east to the west. Then, they saw a strange Dharma manifestation dragon chasing after a pure yang flying sword as it flew out of the hole. Then, the two strangely combined into one and fiercely slashed at the sky wall of myriad poisons from the south to the north. One with the sword? Songyu Laozu cried out in shock. His expression changed, and no one knew what he was thinking. On the other hand, when the other great cultivators heard Songyu Laozu say one with the sword, they were obviously shocked. One with the sword, Xiao Baiyu also exclaimed, but his tone was much more certain than Songyu Laozu's, and his expression was also much more solemn. One with the sword, Yuan Jilaozu first sighed, then said with a hint of inexplicable meaning, legend has it that Zhao Daoren once said, if one wants to break 10,000 laws with a single sword, one must first become one with the sword. I wonder what fellow Taoist Xiao thinks of this sword move of the water sword immortal? Xiao Baiyu's expression also made it impossible to tell what he was thinking. Hearing this, he said, fellow Taoist Yuanjiu, you are wrong. One with the sword is already one sword to break 10,000 laws. But one sword to break 10,000 laws is not necessarily one with the sword. The water sword immortal sword move has indeed reached an extremely high level of swordsmanship. It can be called one sword to break 10,000 laws. Yuan Jilaozu laughed dryly and said, I am too shallow. Fellow Taoist Xiao and Lu Daoyu are the real masters of swordsmanship in the cultivation world. Xiao Baiyu showed a rare trace of regret on his face and said, unfortunately, even though my natal flying sword is already a pure yang spirit treasure, it is still no match for Taoist whose heaven-opening overlord hammer. Otherwise, I might have a chance to experience Lu Daoyu's swordsmanship in the future. But then a powerful momentum surged around Xiao Baiyu again and said, but Zhao Daoren didn't have a natal flying sword back then, but he still dominated the world with his swordsmanship. Only Peng Daoren suppressed him with his cultivation and heaven-opening first divine weapon, 7 Thunder Treasures Calabash. If Zhao Daoren can do that, I may not be inferior to Zhao Daoren in the future. Yuan Jilaozu was very uncomfortable with Xiao Baiyu's momentum, but he still smiled apologetically and said, fellow Taoist Xiao, I admire you very much for your lofty ambitions. Xiao Baiyu did not appreciate his kindness and said coldly, fellow Taoist Yuanjiu, you should pay more attention to the mysterious existence you just mentioned. If I am not mistaken, it should be coming out soon. When Lu Ping broke the heavenly poison wall from the inside out with his swordsmanship for the first time, the breath of Longhuai ancestor's body leaked out, and Lu Ping had already noticed the great changes in the hollow. When the second sword move completely entered the realm of one sword to break all things, with the momentum of man and sword as one, the hollow was instantly covered with thunderclouds, and the breath of the tribulation thunder had increased to the point that even Lu Ping's heart palpitated. The aura of the tribulation thunder directly affected the area within a radius of 1,000 miles. Very soon, Xiao Baiyu and Yuan Jilaozu felt the huge aura of the tribulation thunder, and both of them retreated at the same time. At the same time, both of them were bewildered. How could there be thunderclouds? It seemed unlikely that the mysterious existence was about to face the tribulation thunder, but the aura of the tribulation thunder in front of them was really too huge. Even the pure young tribulation thunder that they had experienced before seemed to be far inferior to the current situation. But before the two of them could retreat too far, the heavenly poison wall, which had already been cut by Lu Ping at the top of the heavenly poison wall, finally began to collapse. Then, they saw vigorous branches and green leaves that were almost covered by clouds fluttering in the sky. Is this a tree? The two true spirits, Lao Tzu, who had retreated to avoid the aura of the tribulation thunder, revealed looks of bewilderment again. Then, as the heavenly poison wall continued to collapse, the figure of a towering tree that covered a radius of tens of miles became increasingly clear in front of the two true spirits, Lao Tzu. What a towering tree! Could it be that there is such a towering tree hidden under the heavenly poison wall? The body of the Longhuai ancestor was so huge that the cultivators of the various sects in the Phantom Palace, who were hundreds of miles away, could see this towering tree, but not its crown. The heavenly poison wall, which had existed since Jiao Daoran opened up the East Sea cultivation world, actually had such a divine existence. At this time, the cultivators of the various sects in the Phantom Palace were not in the mood to discuss the distribution of spirit stones. If it were not for the powerful aura of the tribulation thunder sweeping over at this time, the various sects' cultivators would have long rushed to the fallen secret land to observe this divine tree that had existed for an unknown number of years. Moreover, when the heavenly poison wall was covered in poisonous fog, it was a famous treasure land in the East Sea. Now that the heavenly poison wall had collapsed, who knew how many years of treasures had been hidden in it? However, at this time, the powerful aura of the tribulation thunder swept over thousands of miles. Even if the Dharma adepts of the various sects tried their best to suppress their aura, they could only watch the heavenly tree from hundreds of miles away from the Phantom Five Islands as it welcomed the tribulation thunder. They could not take a step forward. But at this time, what made the hearts of the various sects Lao Tzu bleed was that when this unprecedented tribulation thunder fell, who knew how many of the treasures in the fallen secret land that had been nurtured for thousands of years would be destroyed and how many would be left? At this time, the various sects Lao Tzu released their orders, ordering the disciples of their sects who had not advanced to the Dharma stage to take the risk to go to the fallen secret land. The cultivators who had not condensed their Dharma power would not be noticed by the tribulation thunder. As long as they were not too unlucky and were hit by the scattered power of the tribulation thunder, or deliberately set up by the person undergoing the tribulation, they would not be in too much danger if they went deep into the area covered by the tribulation thunder. However, if the various sects cultivators could think of this, how could Lu Ping, who had long planned to break the heavenly poison wall, not think of this? Although Lu Ping did not expect such a powerful tribulation thunder to fall after breaking the heavenly poison wall, there was no doubt that without the heavenly poison wall, the treasures in the fallen secret land would inevitably be crazily fought over by the various sects cultivators. Therefore, despite the tribulation thunder, Lu Ping immediately released Debao and the descendants of his treasure-seeking mice and the purple crystal bees. Although Debao had been running around with Lu Ping all these years, he had still given birth to more than a dozen treasure-seeking mice descendants on Huangli Island. These descendants multiplied on their own, and now Debao was the first patriarch of a huge treasure-seeking mouse family with 5 generations under the same roof, with a number of hundreds of treasure-seeking mice. However, without Lu Ping's support, with the treasure-seeking mice's low aptitude, and only with the help of Debao, these treasure-seeking mice had only been cultivated by Debao to the early core forging stage. There were more than a dozen treasure-seeking mice in the blood condensation stage, and the rest were just shrimp soldiers and crab generals in the blood refining stage. However, at this time, the treasure-seeking mice army formed by the younger generations of the treasure-seeking mice under Debao's command became Lu Ping's capable helpers in collecting the cultivation resources in the secret burial ground. Under Debao's command, the treasure-seeking mice army all burrowed underground after entering the secret burial ground. More than a dozen treasure-seeking mice in the blood condensation stage had a huge storage bag hanging around their necks. The treasures found by the other treasure-seeking mice were all handed over to these blood condensation stage treasure-seeking mice. Then, the 2 early core forging stage treasure-seeking mice took the more precious items from the treasure-seeking mice's storage bags for Debao to choose from, and the items Debao selected naturally had to be handed over to Lu Ping. As for the amethyst bees, Lu Ping hoped that the Amethyst Bee King could seize this opportunity to advance to the late Dharma stage. Otherwise, unless Lu Ping paid attention to the grotto heavens of the other holy lands where spirit herbs were cultivated, the Amethyst Bee King might not be able to advance in this world. However, at this time, Lu Ping had already left the secret burial ground where the tribulation clouds were condensing in the void. After all, as a pure young practitioner, he did not dare to stay too long under the lightning tribulation. Moreover, at this time, he already knew why the Longhuai ancestor's lightning tribulation came so quickly. The Longhuai ancestor had been sealed in the firmament wall of poison for an unknown number of years, but it had been completely isolated from this world. However, the Longhuai ancestor did not know what kind of legacy it had cultivated, but it had not been affected by the lightning tribulation at all. However, the moment the Longhuai ancestor came into contact with the shackles, 3 lightning tribulations that it had never experienced since it was in the Dharma stage came at the same time. The power of this lightning tribulation was even many times stronger than the pure yang lightning tribulation that Lu Ping and his natal flying sword had summoned at the same time. Lu Ping broke through the void and accurately arrived at the edge of the largest area that the lightning tribulation could reach, and very quickly found Xiao Baiyu and Yuan Laozu, who were also at the edge. At this time, Lu Ping was still fearless and smiled at the two. Xiao Baiyu responded with a smile, while Yuan Laozu seemed a little stiff. Lu Daoyu, do you know the background of this giant tree spirit demon? Xiao Baiyu asked. Lu Ping did not hide and answered with a smile. This is the Longhuai ancestor. Back when I entered the firmament wall of poison, I was taken care of by him and promised to help Laozu escape when I advanced to the pure yang stage in the future. Longhuai ancestor? Xiao Baiyu and Yuan Jiu were obviously very unfamiliar with this name, but the information revealed in Lu Ping's words let the two know that Lu Ping did not come here by accident, but had planned for this long ago. Yuan Laozu couldn't help asking, Lu Daoyu, do you know the origin of this thing and what is its cultivation? Lu Ping looked at Yuan Laozu and said in a light voice, this one is not too clear on the origin of the Longhuai ancestor. As for its cultivation, you two are true spirit cultivators, so you should be able to sense it. Xiao Baiyu smiled and said, this giant tree spirit demon's cultivation is higher than ours, but this lightning tribulation is a bit strange. Lu Ping did not respond to Xiao Baiyu's words, but said meaningfully, we are fighting in full swing, and I don't know how the cultivators of various sects in the Phantom Hall are discussing. Xiao Baiyu knew what was going on. Lu Ping had already shown his strength, so at this time, Skyrin still needed to work with Zhenling to restrict the Crystal Palace, so he said, I have to ask Yuan Jiu to give up something this time. Chapter 1487. Yuan Tongtian and the others watched as 3 late Dharma adepts from Tianling Island flew towards Yankun Island. After a while, several more beams of light rose from Tianling Mountain. They were all late Dharma adepts from Zhenling, and they also flew towards Yankun Island. Yuan Tongtian laughed and said, looks like Lu Tianping values the 7 stars cave heaven so much that Zhenling does not dare to be careless. Although they did not send out all their forces, they sent all their elites. However, just as we expected, there is no one in charge of Tianling Mountain right now. Once the sect-protecting formation is broken, Zhenling will be like a stray dog waiting to be slaughtered. Yuan Feixiang also said, if that's the case, we still need to end this quickly. Lin Yu Laozu has been forced by us, and he may not be willing to give his all. Yuan Daotian said directly to Yuan Feixiang, you don't need to go. Go and keep an eye on the Zhenling adepts on Yankun Island. If they notice that something is wrong and return, you can harass them along the way. Remember not to get surrounded. Yuan Feixiang was anxious and was about to argue, but unexpectedly, Yuan Tongtian also said solemnly, this is your 7th great-uncle's and my idea. Although we have a high chance of success this time, it may not be without risks. With your strength, it doesn't matter if you go or not. However, the future of the Yuan family cannot be without you. You should understand your 7th great-uncle's painstaking efforts. You don't need to go this time. Deng Tianming had used the purple gold scale left behind by Lu Ping as the core of the entire formation on Yankun Island. While it had isolated and suppressed Lin Yu Laozu's natal spiritual treasure, it had also used the power of the formation to trap Lin Yu Laozu. He had attempted to use Lin Yu Laozu to activate the sacrificial secret technique and use Yankun Island as a fulcrum to summon Failing Island to the surface. Originally, the formation on Yankun Island was used to coordinate with Lu Ping's technique of changing seas and mulberry fields. According to Lu Ping's previous estimation, after he attained the Pure Yang realm, he would indeed be able to use the power of the technique of changing seas and mulberry fields to free Failing Island from the seabed with the help of the formation. Although Lu Ping would definitely be exhausted after this and would probably need several years to recover, it was all worth it when compared to obtaining a huge and fertile island. However, after Lin Yu Laozu came to the North Sea and Lu Ping sensed that something was wrong, Lu Ping and Deng Tianming secretly set up a formation trap on Yankun Island and hid a sacrificial formation inheritance from Joshuan Tower. With Lin Yu Laozu's strength, it was naturally impossible for him to activate the entire formation on Yankun Island. However, if the sacrificial secret technique was activated, Lin Yu Laozu, a pure Yang cultivator, would naturally be able to activate the formation. Although Lin Yu Laozu was a pure Yang cultivator and had obtained the inheritance from Joshuan Tower, his strength had greatly increased over the past 100 years. However, his natal spiritual treasure was suppressed, he was also affected by the formation, and he had to deal with the siege of 3 great Jinling cultivators. He was already overwhelmed. When he heard Deng Tianming say sacrificial, he was even more terrified. Lin Yu Laozu had also obtained the inheritance from Joshuan Tower, so he naturally knew the power of this sacrificial secret technique. Although he had not been able to see through the sacrificial formation that Jinling had secretly set up, he now understood everything. However, it was all too late. The enormous power of the formation had already completely engulfed Lin Yu Laozu. Under the siege of the 3 great Jinling cultivators, Lin Yu Laozu increasingly did not have the strength to break free from the sacrificial formation. The essential vitality in his bloodline, using the suppressed natal spiritual treasure as a medium, was continuously absorbed into the formation along with all the vitality in his body. The entire Yankun Island began to shake violently. The surrounding seawater was turbulent, and wave after wave surged towards the shore. Gradually, it began to affect the inner parts of the island. The entire Yankun Island was slowly sinking. Do you think that you can obtain the 7 stars grotto heaven by scheming against the old man? Haha, you are too naive. I'm afraid that your nest has already been raided by others. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Lu Tianping may not have calculated everything perfectly. Lin Yu Laozu knew that he could no longer turn the situation around, so he simply let loose and cursed. However, he did not mention a word about the Yuan clan. At this moment, he actually hoped that the Yuan clan would succeed. At the very least, they could not let these people in front of him have an easy time. Who said that we are scheming against the 7 stars grotto heaven? Mei Tianqin had long been annoyed by Lin Yu Laozu's satisfied expression even at the brink of death. She snorted coldly, causing Lin Yu Laozu's expression to change. At this moment, Lin Yu Laozu could no longer maintain his body in the air. Under the pull of the formation's power, he continued to descend. More and more of the qi around his body was getting out of his control. Mei Tianqin and the other 2 great cultivators had already stopped. At this moment, even if Lin Yu Laozu wanted to self-destruct, he would not have the strength to do so. Lu Tianling smiled and said, I'll let Senior know that our sect is after Failing Island and not the 7 stars grotto heaven. The reason why my disciple told Senior that this island is related to the 7 stars grotto heaven is to confuse the Yuan clan behind Senior. Lin Yu Laozu's expression stiffened. It took him a while to figure out the cause and effect. It turned out that he had fallen into the other party's trap from the very beginning, but he didn't know it. Instead, he thought that he had succeeded. From beginning to end, Lin Yu Laozu, a dignified pure Yang cultivator, was merely a pawn in the game between the Jinling clan and the Yuan clan. Lin Yu Laozu couldn't help but laugh bitterly at the sky. He no longer resisted the formation's refinement, and in an instant, his entire body was swallowed by the sacrificial formation. Just as Lin Yu Laozu was swallowed by the formation, Huge waves suddenly appeared on the sea far away from Failing Island. Failing Island had already floated up from the depths of the sea and started to move towards Sky Spirit Island without leaving a trace. Along the way, the sea within a radius of several hundred kilometers was shaking and the sea was boiling. While the battle on Yin Kuan Island was raging, the two pure yang cultivators from the Yuan clan suddenly arrived outside of Sky Spirit Island's sect-protecting formation. Half of the sky was covered by dark clouds, and lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the clouds. It was as if Zhenling would welcome a baptism of thunder and lightning in the next moment. Lu Tianyuan's figure floated above the sect-protecting formation as he shouted, "Which fellow Taoist has come to Zhenling to make such a joke? Please show yourself." Humph. Immature Dharma minor repairs. Is there no one left in Zhenling? Call your elders out. A loud shout was like a thunderclap, rumbling in the sky. Then, a bolt of lightning fell from the sky. Fortunately, Lu Tianyuan had fallen from the sky, and the lightning was blocked by the sect-protecting formation. Otherwise, with the power from before, Lu Tianyuan knew that he would not have been able to withstand it. You run pretty fast, but if the old man breaks this turtle shell, I'd like to see where you can run to. After falling into the sect-protecting formation and dodging the bolt of lightning, Lu Tianyuan shouted, "Activate the sect-protecting formation at full power and send out a signal to summon the Dharma adepts of our sect. There's an enemy invading with lightning spells. I suspect it's the pure yang cultivator, Laozu. He must be from the Yuan clan of the Central Plains." As soon as Lu Tianyuan finished speaking, another two bolts of lightning fell from the sky like two centipedes crawling in the sky. Zhenling's sect-protecting formation was lit up by the lightning, and a huge amount of spiritual power was released from the formation. The entire formation looked as if it had been weakened by the lightning spells that fell from the sky. I didn't think that a mere North Sea Zhenling could produce so many talents. A small mid-Dharma adept actually has such knowledge. It looks like there's a reason why Zhenling rose to power in the North Sea. The one who spoke was another voice. The shock on Lu Tianyuan's face deepened, but he still tried his best to suppress the shock in his heart. He tried his best to use a calm tone to send a message to the high-level adept of Zhenling on Tianling Mountain. Two pure yang cultivators from the Yuan clan have come to attack. Tens of thousands of lightning bolts fell, and the entire sky above Tianling Island had become an area of raging lightning. Although Zhenling's sect-protecting formation was supported by a huge amount of spiritual energy, the core of the formation was only controlled by a few late Dharma adepts and a few second-generation adepts at the mid-Dharma stage. Among the third-generation disciples, other than Lu Ping, even Yin Tianchu did not know the true secret of Zhenling's sect-protecting formation. Under the sudden attack of the two pure yang cultivators, even though Zhenling had adepts watching over the sect-protecting formation at all times, in a situation where there was no one to control it, the sect-protecting formation could only unleash a fraction of its power. Under the premeditated attacks of the two pure yang cultivators, the sect-protecting formation was soon in danger. In the end, it's just the foundation of a medium-sized sect. Although they've put on the shell of a large sect and are even trying to covet the status of a Holy Land sect, this sect-protecting formation is the face of a sect. I don't know where Zhenling gets his confidence from with such a sloppy sect-protecting formation. Yuan Dao Heaven had a sarcastic look on his face. He nodded at Yuan Tongtian and said, "There's no time to lose. Now that Zhenling and the other great adepts have received the news and are rushing back, I'll go ahead and attack the formation first. Third brother, get ready to support me." Yuan Tongtian said, "Be careful." Yuan Dao Heaven laughed and said, "Without Lu Tianping, Zhenling is nothing more than this." There was an explosion of thunder in the sky, and the whole world fell silent in an instant. In the void, a huge ball of lightning broke through the void and landed on the sect-protecting formation. As the huge ball of lightning fell, the layers of the formation's shields were like layers of wax that had come into contact with heat, and they were pierced through one after another. At this moment, Lu Tianyuan shouted, "3 talents 5 elements Dao soldier formation. Rise." With Lu Tianyuan, Tianyong, Tianfeng, Li Tianru, and Zhu Tianming as the leaders, 108 Jinling adepts joined forces to set up the Dao Soldier Formation on Tianling Mountain. They launched a joint attack, and a giant ape formed in the void at the top of Tianling Mountain. It roared at the sky and then punched out. With a loud bang, the whole sky above Tianling Island was covered by a white light. The ball of lightning was destroyed by the giant ape before it could break through Zhenling's sect-protecting formation. However, the moment the giant ape destroyed the ball of lightning, it also disappeared. The Dao Soldier formation that Lu Tianyuan and the others had set up also collapsed, and many Zhenling core forging adepts were even seriously injured by this attack. Chapter 1488. Yuan Dao Heaven's Ball of Lightning was unable to break through Zhenling's grand spell formation. At that moment, another ball of lightning descended from the sky, transforming into a majestic lightning rock. Shockingly, it was none other than Yuan Heavenspan. Seeing that Yuan Dao Heaven had failed, he immediately rushed over to assist. With the two pure yang experts working together, Zhenling's grand spell formation had no chance of surviving. In the blink of an eye, Yuan Tongtian's Thunder Rock had already rushed into the sect-protecting array. The two pure yang experts instantly joined forces and were about to break Zhenling's sect-protecting array. But at this critical moment, the sect-protecting formation shone brightly, and endless spirit chi flowed freely in the sect-protecting formation like a river that had been dredged. The Zhenling sect-protecting formation, which had not been under anyone's control before, suddenly became smooth and came to life. Everyone in Zhenling cheered. Clearly, some of the great cultivators from the sect had stepped forward to take charge of the sect's great defensive spell formation. Yuan Dao Heaven, who was hovering in midair, was shocked as well. Hadn't the great cultivators from Zhenling already left Sky Spirit Mountain? How could there still be someone here to take charge of Zhenling's great defensive spell formation? However, Yuan Tongtian snorted coldly and said, "Now that we have already broken into the formation, it is too late even if someone is in charge of the formation." The two pure yang experts raised their hands at the same time, and the thunderclouds in the sky churned and condensed, forming a huge, gourd-shaped lightning calabash in midair. It looked quite similar to the Seven Treasures lightning calabash. However, the moment the thunder calabash formed in the void, a figure rose from Tianling Mountain. It was heavenly phenomenon Laozu, who was holding the second tribulation spiritual treasure left behind by Laozu, the Milky Way tablet, and headed towards the two pure yang cultivators from the Yuan family who had fallen into the sect-protecting array. It's a celestial phenomenon. How could it be him? How did Zhenling hide from our detection? Weren't the three rays of flowing light from before all at the late Dharma stage? Could it be that another grand cultivator has appeared in Zhenling? The appearance of celestial phenomenon made the two pure yang experts somewhat flustered and exasperated. The two of them were not afraid that celestial phenomenon Laozu could control the sect-protecting formation, but they were afraid that Zhenling had once produced a true spirit Laozu. If Tai Laozu had really left behind some trump card for Zhenling, then celestial phenomenon Laozu would definitely be the one who grasped this trump card. In fact, other than celestial phenomenon Laozu, all the other grand cultivators in Zhenling were out. This indicated that the lifeline of Zhenling was in his hands. "Third brother, break through it," Yuan Daotian said anxiously. "As long as you and I work together to break through the sect-protecting formation, Zhenling will be at our mercy." Yuan Tongtian hurriedly pulled him back and said, "This time, we're in trouble. Zhenling must have already sensed this beforehand. Something must have happened at Yankun Island. Be careful, they might have some backup plans. Feixiang is still near Yankun Island. Let's retreat first, then we'll plan again later." The two of them worked together and used their lightning techniques to open a path out of the formation. When the two pure yang experts left, everyone in Zhenling heaved a sigh of relief. But before they could regain their composure, they saw celestial phenomenon Laozu smiling coldly. He tossed out the Milky Way tablet in his hand, which was even higher than the lightning calabash. A door in the shape of the Milky Way tablet opened up, and a boundless flood descended from the sky, extinguishing the lightning calabash that was floating in midair. Then, like the Milky Way tablet, the flood crashed down on the heads of Yuan Tongtian and Yuan Daotian, who were rushing out of the formation. The Milky Way tablet that descended from the sky was like a flood that wanted to destroy the world. Its towering might cause the expressions of the two pure young experts to change. How could a late Dharma adept use such a powerful divine ability? The two pure young experts from the Yuan clan had no choice but to retreat in the face of the flood that descended from the sky. The two pure young experts, who had originally wanted to rush out of the formation, had no choice but to retreat back into the formation. Since they could not go out, they could only rush into Tianling Mountain. The two pure young experts stared at the Milky Way tablet in celestial phenomenon Laozu's hand. This was definitely a treasure left behind by a celestial phenomenon. Even Lu Tianping would not be able to seal such a powerful divine ability on a treasure. This must be a trump card left behind by the only person in the history of Jinling, Laozu, who had achieved the celestial phenomenon. But at this time, although the two pure young experts had no choice but to break through the protective formation to enter Tianling Island, they knew that celestial phenomenon Jinling had used a treasure left behind by a celestial phenomenon to force them back. It was definitely not a chance for them to rush into Tianling Mountain. Jinling must have prepared other trump cards that he was confident could hurt the two pure young experts. Sure enough, under the nervous gazes of the two pure young experts, celestial phenomenon Laozu held a feather that shone with a seven-colored brilliance in his hand. This was the life feather of Luan Taoist. One of the seventh patriarch Luan Taoist had personally sealed the heaven-splitting divine ability within it. Originally, the divine ability sealed in this life feather could only be forcibly opened by a cultivator with the Luan bloodline who had been recognized. Celestial phenomenon Laozu did not have the Luan bloodline, so it was naturally impossible for him to obtain the recognition of the feather. However, celestial phenomenon Laozu's cultivation level at the late Dharma stage could not forcibly open the divine ability sealed in the feather. But before Lu Ping went to the East Sea, he had left the two life feather of Luan Taoist in the sect. In this way, Mei Tianqin, Lu Tianling, and celestial phenomenon each had a life feather in their hands. This was also an important reason why Lu Ping was so confident in going to the North Sea. The feather flew up from celestial phenomenon Laozu's hand. But before the feather could change, celestial phenomenon Laozu's expression changed. The spiritual yuan around his body rushed out like a flood from a broken dam. Celestial phenomenon Laozu's face instantly turned pale, and he suddenly bent over and spat out a mouthful of blood. At this moment, the feather seemed to have been given life. A mysterious aura began to grow in the feather, as if an ancient existence was awakening. This mysterious existence made the two pure young cultivators of the Yuan clan feel an unusual sense of fear. Then, in the eyes of the two pure young cultivators, there was only the boundless sea of fire that shot up into the sky. The sect-protecting formation of Tianling Island was instantly burned through, and the surrounding space melted in the sea of fire released by the feather. The two pure young cultivators of the Yuan clan tried their best to dodge, and they did not even hesitate to rush back into the Milky Way descending from the sky. However, the trump card that celestial phenomenon Laozu had left behind was instantly swallowed up by the sea of fire that shot up into the sky. Only thunderbolts were left in the sea of fire that filled the void, but in the end, they still could not break through the shackles of the sea of fire. The two dignified pure young cultivators, who were like the pillars of the number one clan in the cultivation world, could not fight back at all in the face of this seemingly ordinary sea of fire. They were drowned in the sea of fire that shot up into the sky from the feather just like that. If the two pure young cultivators were said to feel extremely aggrieved as they silently perished in this seemingly ordinary sea of fire without any struggle, they could clearly feel the power of the fire that burst out from the feather when they looked at the sky again. The surging Milky Way was also a trump card that celestial phenomenon Laozu had left behind for Jinling in the past, but in the face of the sea of fire that shot up into the sky, the entire Milky Way was instantly roasted into white fog that filled the sky. If celestial phenomenon Laozu had not woken up from the power of the sea of fire at this time and did not hesitate to use up his natal essential essence to retrieve the Milky Way in time, This second tribulation spiritual treasure that celestial phenomenon Laozu had left for Junling would also have perished in the sea of fire. The immense power of the natal plume made all the thousands of Junling cultivators on Tianling Mountain speechless. Everyone was shocked by the power of the heaven and earth displayed by the heaven-splitting remarkable power. The two pure yang cultivators were burned into nothingness without any struggle. The Milky Way left behind by celestial phenomenon Laozu was instantly burned into nothingness. The area where Zhenling's sect protection formation was pierced by the sea of fire was burned into nothingness along with the void. Even now, it could not recover on its own and could only be rearranged and repaired after the space stabilized. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the rainbow-colored plume that floated down leisurely after the sea of fire in the sky subsided. The plume landed in celestial phenomenon Laozu's hand. The originally smooth and mysterious feather was still rainbow-colored, but that was only the original color of the plume. The originally mysterious aura also became obscure, making it look like an ordinary feather. Even if the heaven-splitting remarkable power sealed within such a treasure could not recover, the plume itself was still a top-notch heavenly treasure in this world. Celestial phenomenon Laozu carefully kept the plume. Only then did he realize that Junling had not yet recovered from the shock. His expression immediately darkened as he said, "What are you still standing there for?" Tianling Mountain was instantly in an uproar. It took Yuan Feixiang quite some time to sneak to the vicinity of Yankuan Island. Junling seemed to not care about the sea from Tianling Island to Yankuan Island, but in fact, he was very cautious on the inside. Although Yuan Feixiang was a top-notch great cultivator in the cultivation world, it was not easy for him to avoid Junling's hidden guards without making a sound. However, when he arrived near Yankuan Island, everything that unfolded in front of him shocked him greatly. Lin Yu Laozu, a dignified pure yang cultivator, was now completely trapped in a formation. His whole body was wrapped in the brilliance of the formation, turning into a huge cocoon that was at the mercy of others. There were only two great cultivators in front of him. One was Junling's sect master, Lu Tianling, and the other was Mei Tianqin. However, he clearly saw the escape lights of three great cultivators before, but now there was no trace of the third great cultivator. Could it be that the third great cultivator died in the battle just now? At this moment, Yuan Feixiang suddenly noticed that Yankuan Island below him, a medium-sized island with a circumference of more than 100 miles, was actually slowly sinking into the sea. Yuan Feixiang suddenly felt his heart palpitate. At this moment, a sharp murderous intent suddenly enveloped Yuan Feixiang. "I've been discovered." Yuan Feixiang was not shocked, but happy. The third great cultivator has finally appeared. Could this person be celestial phenomenon Laozu? As expected of the person who pushed Jinling's rise behind the scenes. This kind of murderous intent is really ruthless. But why does this person's aura feel so familiar? Chapter 1489. Yuan Feixiang quickly retreated. That attack that was filled with killing intent landed on empty air, revealing the figure hidden in the void, causing Yuan Feixiang to be greatly shocked. In Tianchu. It's actually in Tianchu, not celestial phenomenon Laozu. Where did celestial phenomenon Laozu go? Yuan Feixiang instantly thought of the crux of the matter. Celestial phenomenon Laozu definitely didn't participate in the siege of Zhenkuan Island. That beam of light that attacked Lin Yu Laozu was actually in Tianchu. Celestial phenomenon Laozu was definitely still guarding Sky Spirit Island. Yuan Feixiang had already guessed the cause and effect in an instant. It was just that he didn't expect that In Tianchu wasn't among the three beams of light. Instead, it was Deng Tianming who used the aura of the violet gold scales to confuse the senses of Yuan Feixiang and the others. Not good. With celestial phenomenon Laozu guarding, Jinling's sect protecting formation would definitely be impregnable. If that Grand Ginseng Laozu of Jinling left behind some trump card, it wouldn't be easy for the two granduncles to break Jinling's sect protecting formation. If the battle dragged on, there might even be an accident. No, he must return to Sky Spirit Island as soon as possible. The moment Yuan Feixiang thought of this, he immediately tried to retreat. However, at this time, The dust of Zhenling's sacrificial formation had already settled. Linyu Laozu would no longer be able to escape death. Once Zhenling Island and Sky Spirit Island merged into one, Linyu Laozu's pure yang body would transform into an artifact spirit similar to the artifact spirit on Zhenling's treasure ship. He would then be used to guard Zhenling's new training ground. Other than Deng Tianming, who still had to maintain the formation, Mei Tianqin, Lu Tianling, and Yin Tianchu immediately joined hands to catch up to Yuan Feixiang. Although Yuan Feixiang was one of the few young elites in this world, he was powerless against the joint attack of 3 powerful cultivators. Fortunately, he had decided to retreat from the beginning, so he did not fall into the encirclement of the 3 powerful cultivators. Moreover, the Yuan clan's lightning escape technique was also very powerful, so he managed to escape. And this escape was not just limited to escaping from Yankuan Island. In the East Sea, the secret graveyard had also turned into a land of thunder. Not only were the illusionary spirit island's Dharma characteristics Laozu shocked, even Lu Ping, Yuan Jiao, and Xiao Baiyu, the 2 true spirit cultivators hiding hundreds of kilometers away, had solemn expressions on their faces. Even the double pure yang lightning tribulation that Lu Ping had undergone in the abundant jade swamp could not compare to such a tyrannical lightning tribulation. The 3 of them looked at the scene in front of them with different thoughts in their minds. At the Dharma characteristic stage, there is no lightning tribulation, but it does not affect the growth of one's cultivation at all. Once the sky poison wall is broken, all the lightning tribulation will descend at the same time. What a strange cultivation method. Since the creation of the 7th patriarch, has there been such a magical cultivation method passed down in the cultivation world? Xiao Baiyu said to Yuan Laozu with half a sigh and half a question in his voice. The ones who had the most secrets in the cultivation world were probably the Holy Land sects that had been passed down since the creation of the world. Yuan Laozu shook his head and said, I have never heard of such a magical cultivation method, but the power of this lightning tribulation is not as simple as the sum of the 3 Dharma lightning tribulations. Mr. Xiao, you and I are now true spirits. What are the chances of us winning against such a lightning tribulation with our current strength? Xiao Baiyu's face showed a contemplative look, but he did not give an answer. His expression was extremely ugly, and after a long time, he said, Mr. Yuanjiao, you mean that the spirit tree demon that summons the lightning tribulation is not weaker than you and me? Yuan Laozu shook his head and said, it can only be stronger. At this point, there is nothing for the old man to hide. 8,000 years ago, there was an existence like you and me who had just become true spirit in our sect. He once secretly sneaked into the secret graveyard, and then there were 2 pure yang cultivators who helped him. Oh, what was the result? Xiao Baiyu was startled, and he could not help but ask. Even Lu Ping showed a solemn expression. Yuan Laozu looked bitter and said, they did not come back. All 3 of them did not come back. You have to know that that was 8,000 years ago. What about now? 8,000 years ago, the Longhuai ancestor mentioned by Lu Ping had killed a true spirit existence, plus 2 pure yang cultivators. 8,000 years later, to what extent would the strength of the Longhuai ancestor grow? After a long time, Xiao Baiyu could not help but say, Lu Xiaoyu, do you know the background of this Longhuai ancestor? Do you understand what it means for such a person to suddenly appear in the cultivation world? Lu Ping's expression was calm, and no one could tell what he was thinking. He just said lightly, it is too late to say anything now. However, such an existence has been in the cultivation world for countless years. I am afraid there are more secrets hidden in his body than the Holy Land. Why would he set his eyes on this world? Xiao Baiyu and Yuan Laozu's expression relaxed. To put it bluntly, with their current status and knowledge, they no longer set their eyes on this world. If it was not for the concern of their sect, they were afraid that they would have gone to the North Ice Field long ago. This world was no longer a challenge for them. Instead, it had become an obstacle that hindered them from going further. The Longhuai ancestor had lived alone in the sky wall of infinite poison for countless years. Even though he had been freed from the shackles, his tyrannical strength would not allow him to stay in this world. If there was no spirit space for him to hide in, and now that the sky wall of infinite poison had been broken, he would probably have gone to the North Ice Field much faster than Xiao Baiyu and the others. As the three of them spoke, the seventh tribulation lightning bolt had already descended from the sky. However, after the seventh tribulation lightning bolt, the silhouette of the long Huai tree could still be vaguely seen amidst the sea of lightning that filled the sky. Clearly, the seven mighty tribulation lightning bolts did not cause too much damage to Patriarch Long Huai. The eighth tribulation lightning fell. It was also a celestial river of lightning. However, this celestial river of lightning was even more majestic. From afar, the giant tree seemed to reach straight into the sky. From the beginning, the celestial river of lightning descended along the giant tree, like a majestic waterfall of lightning. Not to mention the cultivators from the various sects who were hiding in the illusionary spirit palace. Even Lu Ping and the others were dumbfounded by this scene. As the celestial river of lightning crashed down, they could occasionally see countless branches and leaves that were no weaker than the trunk of an ordinary tree. They were surrounded by lightning as they fell from the giant tree. However, before they could land on the ground, they would ignite into a raging fire and be reduced to ashes after a while. Although the branches and leaves that were struck down by the heavenly river of lightning were huge, in the eyes of Lu Ping and the others who were watching from a few hundred miles away, they were nothing more than inconspicuous branches of a giant tree that had been struck down by the heavenly river of lightning. They were nothing more than a few sparks in front of the heavenly river of lightning. In the blink of an eye, the heavenly river of lightning destroyed the branches and leaves. In the end, the eighth lightning bolt had managed to damage the ancient dragon scholar tree to a certain extent. After the celestial river of lightning dissipated, the ancient dragon scholar tree, which had been green and brimming with life force, was now in a state of disarray. Its massive and plump treetop was now filled with holes, and the raging flames gave the ancient dragon scholar tree a blackish-gray color. Every now and then, rotten branches and tendrils would fall from the giant tree. Suddenly, however, a surging wave of vitality burst out from the ancient dragon scholar tree. The flames that were burning on the treetop were gradually extinguished. After the rotten branches and tendrils fell, the greenery hidden beneath the branches and tendrils were revealed once more. Moments later, the ancient dragon scholar tree still appeared to be in a wretched state. However, despite the lack of a plump treetop, more powerful branches could be seen. The largest branches that extended out from the main trunk looked like a massive wood wyrm that was ready to pounce. The Longhuai ancestor was born in the fallen secret land, which has a lot to do with Zhao Doran's injury in the cultivation world when he opened up the overseas cultivation world by himself. In this case, is the Longhuai ancestor really inextricably linked with Zhao Doran? Xiao Baiyu was asking Yuan Jilaozu, as well as Lu Ping. The Crystal Palace should have the clearest insight into the legend of the fallen secret land since the beginning of the world, while Lu Ping had a close relationship with the Longhuai ancestor. Naturally, Xiao Baiyu had to ask them for confirmation. Yuan Jilaozu hesitated for a moment before nodding slightly. Judging from the secret books handed down by our sect, it seems that Taoists who had some scruples and speculations about the fallen secret land. However, I don't know why, even when Zhao Daoran went north to open up the North Sea cultivation world, Taoists who did not personally enter the fallen secret land to investigate. Compared with Yuan Jilaozu's hesitation, Lu Ping was much more straightforward. Although Senior Long Huai was born as a spirit demon, he has the bloodline inheritance of the WYRM. After saying this, Lu Ping seemed to have expected the two's reaction and immediately said, "Don't ask me, I don't know why. Maybe Senior Long Huai really has a close relationship with Zhao Daoran, but I have never asked about this." As the three of them spoke, the last tribulation thunder was ready to be launched. The tribulation clouds in the sky had shrunk into a ball, and finally, a huge lightning droplet was squeezed out in the sky, swaying and hanging under the tribulation clouds that had condensed to the extreme, undulating and shrinking in all directions, constantly changing shape as if it would fall at any time. In the end, the lightning bead fell to the ground. Even though the dragon scholar tree looked as if it was connected to the sky, when the lightning bead fell to the ground, it expanded to a size that was large enough to swallow the entire dragon scholar tree. Huge explosions of thunder rose and fell, shaking the area within 1,000 miles. The legendary roar that came from the thunder bead made all the cultivators above the Dharma manifestation stage in this area feel a kind of fear that came from their bloodline. This feeling was very familiar to Lu Ping, but the moment the giant Long Huai tree let out the roar, it emitted a kind of domineering and excited feeling. Chapter 1490. With a loud roar, the huge thunder ball exploded in an instant, and a green flood dragon hovered in the sky. The weather changed, and the lightning in the secret permafrost gradually dissipated. However, the giant tree that stood there had disappeared at this time. No one thought that the mysterious existence had failed to pass the tribulation. Everyone looked at the green flood dragon that was flying up and down in the void, swallowing a huge amount of pure yang qi. At this time, the heavenly flower dew that fell from the sky was like a light rain, but the green flood dragon did not absorb it. Instead, it let the heavenly flower dew fall into the secret permafrost. Its body was like a snake, its horns like a rhinoceros, its eyes like an eagle, its feet like a crocodile, its head like a camel, and its scales like a carp. This green flood dragon itself had many similarities with Lu Ping's dragon dharma form. However, it was still different in essence. Longhuai ancestor might not even be aware of this, but Lu Ping knew it in his heart. It has broken away from the shackles of the body and directly transformed into a real spirit. Yuan Jilaozu sighed, but there was a flash of fear in his expression. As soon as Yuan Jilaozu's voice fell, the green flood dragon in the void had finished absorbing the pure yang qi, and the heavenly flower dew that fell from the sky had all melted into its body. At this moment, Yuan Jilaozu, Lu Ping, and Xiao Baiyu all changed their expressions. First, the broken sword that was smashed by Danju Laozu hovered around Xiao Baiyu, but it was quickly suppressed by Xiao Baiyu and then taken back. Then Yuan Jilaozu seemed to be unable to suppress the riot of the Overlord Hammer. The crystal hammerhead was raised high, and it was eager to try in the direction of Longhuai ancestor's green flood dragon. It seemed that the hammer would fall at any time. Although Yuan Jilaozu tried his best to control it, the Overlord hammer had just been obtained, and it had not been refined by him yet. Moreover, it was not his spiritual treasure, so he could not completely control this Overlord hammer. Only Lu Ping maintained a calm expression after a moment of shock. Then, he looked at the two people beside him with a hint of surprise. However, at this time, in Lu Ping's core space, not only was the Zhenling sword humming, but the dragon dharma form was also tumbling up and down. The light on the surface of the two colorful feathers was constantly flickering, and at the same time, a handkerchief wanted to fly out of the core space. However, the dragon dharma form was ultimately Lu Ping's dharma form, and the Sword of True Soul was also Lu Ping's natal flying sword. At this time, although both of them wanted to fly out of Lu Ping's body to respond to that familiar existence, under Lu Ping's strong suppression, they obediently stayed in the core space. Although Taoist Luan's ability to split the heavens was sealed in the two natal plume feathers, just like the handkerchief, the strength of the plume feathers was clearly too inferior. Before they could break free from the core space, they were suppressed by the primary time bead and the white jade lotus flower formation. This feeling was very familiar to Lu Ping. Back then, when Lu Ping used the Horn of True Soul to refine his natal flying sword on Calming Island, the moment the sword was formed, the world responded. At this time, facing the green flood dragon whose body had completely transformed into a true soul, this feeling was no different from when the Sword of True Soul was formed. At the same time, when the Longhuai ancestor transformed into a flood dragon, the strange large whirlpool in the depths of the East Sea appeared again. 3 skin-like flood dragon phantoms were thrown into the air, but this time, they were a little more agile. The dragon sculpture hidden on the 9-dragon bell in the void of the North Sea's Huangli Island suddenly swam on the bell's wall as if it had gone crazy, and even wanted to completely break away from the 9-dragon bell's body. In the void, the vast sound of the bell resounded throughout the world. All the cultivators on Huangli Island looked up, but they saw nothing. Only the sound of the bell continued to ring. At this time, in the South Sea's illusory land of 5 elements, Skyward Pavilion, Lingyun Valley, Endless Mountain, Wuxing School, Spirit Beast Sect, Yuan Clan's Ancestral Land, Purple Sun Palace, and the Northern Ice Plains' Great Spiritual Ape Clan's Towering Peak. There were similar vast phenomena appearing. It seemed to be echoing, welcoming, or warning something. After wasting 30,000 years, I still can't become a dragon. A long sigh rang out from the void, and the green flood dragon turned into a middle-aged man with an elegant appearance. He slowly descended from the void, walking towards Lu Ping and the others. The Longhuai ancestors' gaze skipped over Lu Ping and landed on Yuan Jilaozu. Yuan Jilaozu felt as if he had been seen through in an instant. The crystal palace floating above his head seemed to have a natural hatred for the Longhuai ancestor. It would smash down from time to time in an attempt to intimidate him, but it also seemed to be rather fearful of him. The Longhuai ancestor looked at the Overlord's hammer, and a trace of deep nostalgia flashed through his eyes. However, he immediately frowned, as if he wanted to completely dispel this feeling. He said, "The Mother Insect's hammer? It's a pity that you, as an inheritor, seem to be lacking. You can't even use 30% of its power. It seems that you took a shortcut to become a true soul?" Yuan Jilaozu's expression changed. He opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but after the Longhuai ancestor finished speaking, he seemed to lose interest in Yuan Jilaozu. Instead, he looked curiously at Xiao Baiyu and said, "Oh, you're a little interesting. A true soul that you worked so hard to become has some potential. As the inheritor of the mixed hairy bird, you actually learned the sword techniques of his old enemy. You've learned it quite well. Even your natal flying sword is broken." Xiao Baiyu seemed to have heard something from the Longhuai ancestor's words. He immediately asked, "May I ask what relationship Senior has with the 7th Patriarch?" Yuan Jilaozu was worried for Xiao Baiyu. It was a taboo to directly ask about someone else's background. The person in front of him was an existence that could even kill a true soul. Now that he had broken through to become a true soul, his strength had increased to an unknown level. What would happen if he killed someone in a fit of rage? It was fine if he killed Xiao Baiyu, but what if he dragged him into it? He never thought that the Longhuai ancestor would not hide this at all. He said, "He, the 7th Patriarch of the Sky Creator, you've endured 30,000 years of glory, but what happened to you? It's true that the old man's background originated from Zhao Daoren, but the old man is not him. He only carries a part of his memories." Even so, the information and identity revealed by the Longhuai ancestor was enough to shock Yuan Jiao and Xiao Baiyu. Could it be that the 7th Patriarch of the Sky Creator had never left this world? According to the Longhuai ancestor, it seemed that the situation of the 7 Laozu was not good. The Longhuai ancestor seemed to have been given life by Zhao Daoren and even directly inherited Zhao Daoren's memories. However, he was different from Zhao Daoren and had independent thoughts and consciousness. Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. He thought about the doppelganger secret technique that the Longhuai ancestor had passed on to him, and a bold idea popped up in his mind. Could it be? At this moment, the Longhuai ancestor suddenly turned around and looked at Yuan Jilaozu with a faint smile. "You seem to be afraid?" At the end of the day, the Origin Wine ancestor was a peak existence in this world, so he naturally had his pride and dignity. He only smiled and said, "Your existence and strength seem to exceed what this world can bear by far too much. In truth, you can be said to be an accident of this world. May I ask, which peak existence and faction in this world would not be afraid of you?" The Longhuai ancestor ignored Yuan Jilaozu's words. Instead, he seemed to recall something and suddenly came to a realization. The old man remembers now. 8,000 years ago, there seemed to be a practitioner of the same origin as you who broke into this secret perished place and tried to cut down the old man's body. In the end, he was suppressed by the old man and used as fertilizer. You are afraid because of this? Yuan Jilaozu's expression changed. When he was about to explain, he saw that the Longhuai ancestor had turned his head and ignored him. Instead, he looked at Lu Ping strangely and said, "You are an anomaly. I didn't expect that the legacy left by that person who enlightened the creatures in this world could create an existence like you who is comparable to the old man. You have that person's breath on you. It seems that you have inherited that person's item. But why do you still have the breath of that sparrow? At this time, Lu Ping had figured out what the Longhuai ancestor called the sky-opening Laozu. The female insect should be Taoist Hu, and the sky-opening artifact in his possession had always been kept in the Crystal Palace. The mixed-haired bird should be Jiao Doran's sworn enemy, Peng Daoran. After all, the Longhuai ancestor was a creature personally created by Jiao Daoran. Although Lu Ping suspected that Jiao Daoran had long been the original intention of the Longhuai ancestor, it was obvious that the Longhuai ancestor also hated Peng Daoran. Xiao Baiyu was of the rock bloodline, but he was addicted to the swordsmanship inheritance of Jiao Daoran, so obviously, the Longhuai ancestor did not like him either. As for the Kaer, it must be referring to the Luan Daoist. Lu Ping had the Luan Daoist's natal feather and the handkerchief with Jiao Doran's handwriting on it. It was inevitable that the Luan Daoist's breath was detected by the Longhuai ancestor. In the beginning, the 7 of them were ambitious and wanted to create a new world. However, there were still some shortcomings. The spiritualist clan was weak and neglected, and became the meat of the 2 races. The Kaer was the most merciful, leaving the Wood Luan bloodline to take care of the spiritualist clan's growth in an attempt to make the 2 races mutually beneficial. Unexpectedly, the 2 races almost suffered a disaster. As the Longhuai ancestor spoke to the 3 people, he reached out and lifted his hand towards the secret perished land. The heavenly poisonous wall that had been smashed by Lu Ping rose up again and gradually closed. He said, "It is difficult for the spiritualist clan to grow, and it is even more difficult for them to communicate. The old man intends to let the secret perished land become the habitat of the spiritualist clan again, and neither the human nor the demon race can invade it. What do the 3 of you think?" Yuan Jilaozu said, "With Senior's protection, no one dares to enter the secret perished land." Lu Ping saw that although the heavenly poisonous wall had risen again, the poisonous mist that had originally filled the secret perished land did not appear again. He pondered for a moment and said, "I also have 2 cultivators of the spiritualist clan under my command. I have no objection to opening up a habitat for the spiritualist clan. However, as Senior Yuanjiu said, with Senior Long Huai's protection, the secret parish land is naturally impregnable. However, if Senior leaves, although the heavenly poisonous wall can block Dharma forms, it cannot block pure yang." Xiao Baiyu said, "However, I'm afraid that the 3 of us agreeing is not enough. The spiritualist clan has always been a rare treasure in the eyes of the human and demon races. We can at most restrain the cultivators of the North Sea and East Sea, but the cultivators of the other regions are powerless." Chapter 1491. The Longhuai ancestor wanted to open up a pure land for the spirit demon clan. To be honest, several people, including Lu Ping, did not agree with it. It was not that Lu Ping did not support it, but as the 3 people had said before, Lu Ping did not think that without the Longhuai ancestor, everything in the perished secret land could still be preserved. Unless the perished secret land could establish a perfect spirit demon inheritance system like the human clan sections. However, the spirit demon clan was different from the human clan and the demon clan. The human clan and the demon clan could awaken their spiritual wisdom on their own, but the spirit demon clan could only rely on luck to awaken their spiritual wisdom on their own. Therefore, it was extremely difficult for the spirit demon clan to achieve this. The Longhuai ancestor obviously understood the meaning of the 3 people's words. He smiled and said, "I want you to restrain the disciples of the sect not to protect the spirit demon clan, but to avoid the deaths and injuries of the cultivators in your sect." Seeing the slightly stunned expressions of the 3 people, the Longhuai ancestor smiled and said, "The old man has been in the perished secret land for more than 30,000 years. Because of the existence of the sky wall of poison, he could not summon the thunder retribution, so he could not completely break away from the shackles of his body. In order to pass the boring time, the old man has also taught many of the younger generation in the secret land. Their cultivation has accumulated enough, and the only thing they need is to experience the thunder retribution to break away from the shackles of their bodies. Lu Ping had entered the perished secret land and saw the original body of the Longhuai ancestor, but he had never seen the existence of other spirit demons. Now that he thought about it, it was obviously deliberately done by the Longhuai ancestor. But now that the sky wall of poison has completely fallen into the control of the old man, some of the younger generation who have received guidance from the old man can summon the thunder retribution at any time and transform into human form. Although the old man's original body could not leave the sky wall of poison, he once traveled the world with his incarnation. Within 100 years, the perished secret land can produce more than 20 Dharma adepts, many of whom are at the pure yang level. In this world, this is equivalent to an existence close to a holy land. It can completely establish its own clan in the East Sea. What do you think? The three of them were all shocked. Within 100 years, the perished secret land could produce more than 20 Dharma adepts. If it had been anyone else, the three would have scoffed. If it had been someone else, they would have been disdainful. However, from the existence in front of them, they would have been convinced. Just as the cultivators of the various sects in the hall were secretly speculating about the reason behind these three decrees, Ancestor Tsang Yu was the first to sigh and said, "I believe the two of you understand the whole story of today's matter. Do you have any objections?" Who could have any objections to the tone set by two celestial spirits, Laozu and the pure yang? Who dared to have any objections? Everyone cursed in their hearts. Zhang Tianlin smiled and said, "In that case, let's do as the three of you said." Yuanfeng Laozu snorted coldly. His face was extremely pale, but he did not dare to say anything in the end. The Crystal Palace's plan to hunt them down eventually failed. This time, the Crystal Palace had undoubtedly suffered the greatest loss in the distribution of the Spirit Stone Mine on the Phantom Island. The distribution plan was finalized. The 10 sects, including the Crystal Palace, divided the giant Spirit Stone Mine on the Phantom Island. Among them, the Crystal Palace's share was reduced from 40% to 30%, while Skyrind and Jinling each took 10% of the original share of the Crystal Palace. However, Skyrind's strength was originally above Jinling's. Although they each got 10%, Skyrind's total share was still more than Jinling's. These three sects occupied 60% of the giant Spirit Stone Mine in one fell swoop, while the remaining 7 large sects divided the remaining 40%. Originally, Jinling and Skyrind's plan was to gain the support of the other large sections. They only wanted to take 20% of the Crystal Palace's share, while the three sects only wanted 50% of the entire mine. Of course, the Crystal Palace strongly opposed it. In the end, they were only willing to give up 10% of the share. However, how could that satisfy the appetite of the other two sects? Helplessly, the three sects could only cooperate with each other to take away 10% of the share from the other 7 sections. The other 7 sects dared not to say anything even though they were angry. In fact, the 3 sects, including the Crystal Palace, were quite scrupulous about this blatant way of bullying the 7 sections. At the beginning, none of the 3 sects wanted to be the bad guy. Jinling and Skyrind insisted that their respective 10% share should be taken from the Crystal Palace. If the Crystal Palace wanted to keep 30% of the share, they had to get 10% from other shares. The implication was that they wanted the Crystal Palace to be the scapegoat for offending the 7 sections. Of course, Yuanfeng Laozu would not let the 2 sects succeed. He insisted that the Crystal Palace voluntarily give up 10% of the share, and the 2 sects would ask for the remaining 10% from the 7 sects themselves. In the end, after a series of intrigues, the 3 sects finally chose to cooperate with each other and put pressure on the 7 sects together. Together, they occupied 60% of the entire giant spiritual stone mine. In the secret burial ground, as the 4 of them entered the heavenly poisonous wall one after another, Longhuai Ancestor took the opportunity to reveal the breath of a spiritual monster with a mysterious space power. The sky was suddenly covered with tribulation clouds. However, the momentum was quite different from what Longhuai Ancestor had done before. It was a pine tree that was 1,000 feet tall. Lu Ping carefully watched the process of the tribulation. 9 bolts of tribulation lightning fell in a row. The pine tree spirit managed to resist the tribulation, but Longhuai ancestor quickly closed the heavenly poisonous wall. The breath of the pine tree spirit was covered, and the tribulation clouds in the sky gradually dissipated. Qingsong, who had survived the first thunder calamity, was now at the mid-Dharma stage. His true form was also beginning to take on a human form. A tall and thin middle-aged man broke away from Qingsong's true form and looked around himself excitedly. Only then did he remember to thank Patriarch Longhuai. In fact, Lu Ping and the others could see that the pine tree in front of them had accumulated a lot of energy. It was no weaker than a late Dharma adept. However, Longhuai ancestor was obviously protecting the pine tree spirit and did not allow it to continue summoning the tribulation lightning to advance directly to the late Dharma stage. However, what Lu Ping found strange was that this pine tree spirit did not seem to be able to transform after advancing to the core forging stage like Lu Taohua. Thinking about how Longhuai ancestor's original body had also undergone the tribulation lightning, Lu Ping secretly guessed, could it be that the Longhuai ancestor's ability is not weaker than a Dharma adept's, even though it is not yet a Dharma adept? Could it be that its original body could not transform before the tribulation? Compared to Lu Ping's attention to the spiritual monster's tribulation in the secret burial ground, Spirit Wine Laozu and Xiao Baiyu were obviously more concerned about other things. Spirit Wine Laozu asked with a shocked expression, "Senior, you can actually control the time when the tribulation lightning strikes?" Longhuai ancestor laughed and said, "Although the old man has inherited the memories of Zhao Daoren, he is not the creator of this world. There is no way he can change the rules of this world. All the old man can do is take advantage of a loophole. Once these juniors do not have the old man's heavenly poisonous wall to conceal their aura, they will immediately be punished by the tribulation lightning." Xiao Baiyu sucked in a breath of cold air and said, "This heavenly poisonous wall can conceal the cultivator's perception of the tribulation lightning. Doesn't this mean that this formation is equivalent to a lesser kiliacosm? Senior will not have to worry about being excluded by this world?" Longhuai ancestor seemed to have seen through the two's thoughts. He shook his head and said with a smile, "The heavenly poisonous wall is not comparable to a lesser kiliacosm, but it is still personally arranged by Zhao Daoren in the past. The old man has said before that the heavenly poisonous wall still needs the old man's method to conceal the junior's aura. Without the old man's ability to conceal it, even the heavenly poisonous wall will not be able to block the thunder tribulation's perception of the spiritual monster's aura. As for the old man, the old man's existence is too special. If the seal of the heavenly poisonous wall has not been broken, the old man will not have to worry about being excluded by this world. But since the old man has turned into a true spirit, the heavenly poisonous wall will no longer be able to conceal the old man's aura. In the end, he will still be excluded by this world. It's just a matter of time." Chapter 1492. Although Yuan Jilaozu and the others knew that the Longhuai ancestor would leave this world in the future, when they heard it from the Longhuai ancestor, they secretly breathed a sigh of relief. The Longhuai ancestor did not seem to know what they were thinking. He just said, "This time, the old man asked the 3 of you to come here. In addition to visiting the secret parish site of the spiritual demon clan, the most important thing is to tell you about the North Ice Fields. The thunder tribulation above the poisonous sky wall had not stopped since the 3 of them entered the secret parish site a few days ago. Until now, at least 7 or 8 thunder tribulations had fallen, which meant that the spiritual demon clan had gained 7 or 8 mid-Dharma adepts in just a few days. And looking at the momentum, the thunder tribulation above the poisonous sky wall would continue. Moreover, in the past few days, when the 3 of them had toured the secret parish site, they had at least discovered several auras that were not weaker than the late Dharma adepts. These spiritual demons had the ability to summon the second thunder tribulation at any time. Lu Ping and the others even felt 2 auras that were comparable to pure young adepts. It was just that the spiritual demons that these 2 auras belonged to did not let the 3 of them see their true forms, whether intentionally or unintentionally. After a few days, the three of them turned into light and left the secret parish site. But it seemed that they all had a lot on their minds and even had a look of disbelief. Obviously, the three of them had received a lot of incredible news from the Longhui ancestor. And after the three of them left the secret parish site, the Crystal Palace, Skyrind, and Jinling began to send messengers to the major sects and demon tribes in the Central Plains, overseas, the North Ice Fields, the West Wilderness, the Endless Mountains, and other places. A shocking news began to spread among the high-end forces of the cultivation world, and a storm began to slowly brew. As Lu Ping and the others entered the secret zone and the cultivators from the illusionary Spirit Palace were fiercely fighting over the distribution of the Spirit Stone Mine, a violent spatial turbulence spread out in all directions hundreds of kilometers northeast of Huangli Island in the North Sea. A spatial entrance slowly opened up and the Seven Stars Grotto Heaven opened up once again. Elder sister, I heard from the seniors in our clan that there will be a big confrontation between Father and the Crystal Palace and other sects when he goes to the Phantom Island this time. Why do you think Father doesn't want us to go there to help him? Instead, he sends an edict to ask us to return to Huangli Island as soon as possible? Lu Hai, who now looked like a young man of 16 or 17 years old, grumbled unwillingly as he rode on the light. Exactly. Lu Linger was eager to see the world in chaos. She said, "We have now completely accepted all the inheritance of the green sea snakes, and there will be no obstacles to our cultivation in the future. Even now, we have passed the first thunder calamity and consolidated our cultivation. With the power of the three of us, even if two great practitioners at the late Dharma realm join forces, they will be defeated by us. Do you think the seniors in our clan are forging Father's edict to deceive us?" Lu Bai's face darkened and she said, "Linger, don't talk nonsense. We have all seen Father's edict. Can't we tell whether it is true or not?" Lu Linger pouted and said, "I'm just kidding. Elder sister is always so serious." Lu Bai said seriously, "Father is now a pure young practitioner. How many people in the world can be his opponent? But Jinling's foundation is shallow now. If Father is in the North Sea, everything will be fine. What I am afraid of is that someone will take advantage of Father's absence to make trouble." Lu Linger's eyes lit up and she said, "Elder sister, you mean there must be a reason why Father asked us to go back to the North Sea?" Lu Bai nodded and said, "It is very likely. Otherwise, Father is now in the North Sea. Why did he ask us to go back to the North Sea first?" Lu Hai rubbed his fists and said, "I hope there are some ignorant people who can provide us with entertainment." Lu Bai, who was flying at the front, suddenly stopped. Lu Hai and Lu Linger did not understand and quickly stopped together. Lu Hai asked in confusion, "Elder sister, what's wrong?" Lu Bai pointed to the front and said, "Look there." Lu Linger was surprised and said, "Hey, fog?" "No, that is the sea near Huangli Island. Did something really happen?" Lu Hai took a deep breath, and the surrounding spiritual chi vibrated. He seemed to have performed some kind of magic. Then he licked his lips and said, "Poisonous. There is poison in the fog. Something really happened. But the taste of this poisonous fog is really good. Let's go. We have work to do." Lu Hai called out the Taishan halberd in his hand. At this time, the Taishan halberd had been upgraded to a first calamity spirit treasure. Lu Hai held the spirit treasure and plunged into the sea, heading in the direction of Huangli Island. Obviously, he did not care about the poisonous fog in the distance. Lu Linger giggled, turned around beautifully, and turned into a cloud of sparkling snowflakes fluttering up and down. Lu Bai swung her hand, and a long whip made of spirit treasure directly shattered the nearby void with a crisp sound. Then it turned into a cool breeze, rolled up the snowflakes, and disappeared into the sea. At the same time, in the waters near Huangli Island, a few cultivators were secretly gathered together, watching the mist that was gradually rising from the surface of the sea. If Lu Ping were here, he would have seen one or two familiar faces among them. This fog was originally the magical method of the head elder of the family. It is a pity that the head elder died in the Battle of Joshuan Tower against Mara. Otherwise, the family would not be so anxious to find the source potion of all poisons. The person who spoke was Lu Runjian, a mid-Dharma adept of the Lu family, the #1 alchemy family in Central Plains. Brother, now that Zhenling is like the sun in the sky in the North Sea, aren't we provoking Lu Tianping by openly setting up the fog near Huangli Island? It is said that Lu Tianping has the 1,000 Wonder Dew and has mastered the 1,000 Poison Meteorite Power Shield. These are all methods to restrain the fog. Now that Lu Tianping is a top expert in the world, if he makes things difficult for the Lu family, wouldn't it be a disaster? Liao Ruanjia, the former head of the Liao family of the North Sea, and now a Dharma adept of the Lu family of Central Plains, said with some worry after hearing this. Lu Runjian smiled and said, "Brother, don't worry. Zhenling can't even take care of himself now, and Lu Tianping's fate in the East Sea is unknown. Our Lu family has never wanted to fight with the Yuan family for the 7-star cave heaven. All we want is the source potion of all poisons in the 7-star cave heaven. At this time, the Yuan family can't wait for us to cause trouble for Zhenling." Another Lu family practitioner also nodded and said, "Cousin, you are right. Huangli Island is closest to the 7-star cave heaven and has always been the base for Zhenling to send his disciples into the cave heaven. Now, with Zhenling's power in the East Sea, if we don't stop it, the 7-star cave heaven will definitely belong to Zhenling's disciples. At that time, it will definitely affect the disciples of the family who enter the Golden Valley. In fact, the previous 2 times the 7-star cave heaven opened, it was because of the obstruction of Zhenling's disciples that the disciples of the family were unable to find out the whereabouts of the source potion." Lu Ruinjia was obviously still worried and said, "Then what if the Zhenling practitioners stationed at Huangli Island want to force their way in? It is said that there are at least 3 Zhenling Dharma adepts stationed at Huangli Island. If they force their way in, it will be troublesome." Force their way in? Lu Runjian was amused when he heard this. Then, his words were filled with murderous intent as he laughed coldly and said, "If that Zhenling doesn't know his place, then we might have to offend Zhenling." Seeing Lu Ruinjia's hesitant expression, Lu Runjian laughed and said, "Brother, your disciples have already moved back to Central Plains. This North Sea has nothing to do with the Lu family from now on. What are you still worried about?" Lu Ruinjia forced a smile when he heard this. The haze in his heart still lingered, but seeing that the few Dharma adepts of the family all looked like they had victory in their hands, he could only keep his mouth shut. On Huangli Island, Sky Fox was not far from giving birth. Many matters on Huangli Island were handled by Green Fox. However, at this time, things had happened so suddenly that even Sky Fox did not have time to rest and came out of the cave to investigate the situation. "Is there any news from Tianling Mountain?" Sky Fox saw that Green Fox and 6th Brother Lei, the 2 mid-Dharma adepts, were there and could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. However, Green Tiger and Green Wolf had already been sent to Central Plains by Lu Ping and were not on Huangli Island. "Not yet." Green Fox's expression was slightly solemn, but she still comforted him. However, since he had already predicted this before going to East Sea, he must have set up a backup plan. "It should be fine. You should rest in peace." However, 6th Brother Lei said, "Since the 7-star cave heaven has opened recently, Zhenling has not sent any blood condensation disciples to Huangli Island this time. Did Brother Lu predict this beforehand?" Sky Fox signaled to Green Fox that he was not in the way and then nodded at 6th Brother Lei. He said, "My husband's plan for the 7-star cave heaven is imminent, so there is no need for our sect to send disciples into the 7-star cave heaven to take the risk. However, my husband originally thought that the Lu family would not take such a risk. After all, they have always wanted to enter the 7-star cave heaven's golden canyon. Although our disciples have competed with them in the cave heaven, we have never prohibited them from entering. I did not expect them to make a move." 6th Brother Lei said thoughtfully, "If that is the case, it seems that Brother Lu's encounter in the East Sea is not too good. The Lu family must have sensed it beforehand. Otherwise, with the Lu family's strength, they would not take such a big risk." However, Green Fox said, "With his ability, even the true spirit Laozu might not be able to do anything to him. What I am curious about is, did he not set up a backup plan for the Lu family?" Sky Fox smiled, and suddenly, 2 jade essence bottles appeared in his hands. He said, Huangli Island's protective formation is strong enough. It is almost impossible for the Lu family to attack Huangli Island by force. However, if they really go to the extreme, with the things in these 2 bottles, they will not have to worry about the poisonous fog. Moreover, if I am not wrong, Samling should be back by now. Green Fox opened the bottle and took a sniff. She raised her eyebrows and smiled. It is a drop of wonder dew. With this item, one can indeed be immune to all poisons. However, Sixth Brother Lei said, So those 3 little guys are coming back? After obtaining the inheritance of the green sea snakes, the strength of those 3 little guys will definitely soar. The Lu family is really courting death. Not long after Sixth Brother Lei's voice fell, as if to verify the truth of his words, there was a sudden explosion in the fog above Huangli Island. At the same time, there were loud rebukes and exclamations. Sixth Brother Lei and the others could clearly hear that it was Samling and the Lu family's cultivators fighting. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.